I'll start off with Utility Operations and Services Department, which you may notice my title is actually Field Operations Services Manager. The Utility Operations and Services Department, Field Operations is the only division left in the department because of some of the rearrangements that we've made. Conveyance Engineering used to be in this department and then has now moved to WET, as well as a number of years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, the Development Services Department that's now in RUSD also used to be in this department. So if you look at your budget book on page 285, that is where the Utility Operations and Services budget starts. And actually, even if you go to 287, that's where the department roll-up will be located. And if you have your roadmap book, it's on page 219 to 232 of the roadmap is the 3 roadmaps related to Utility Operations and Services. One departmental roadmap and then one each for our groups within Utility Operations and Services.
Could you repeat those pages again?
Of course, Director Trees.
On both?
For the budget book, I'd recommend page 287. That's the departmental roll-up.
Okay.
And for the roadmap, page 219 to page 232.
Thank you.
For the roadmaps, each of the groups that are represented on the slide here have a roadmap. There's the administration group that covers all of the department, and then there's one roadmap for our maintenance groups and one roadmap for our construction groups. We have 80 FTE within the Field Operations, Utility Operations and Services Department. Within the construction group, there's 2 budget programs, system repair and local repair and construction. Both of those groups, as the name sort of implies, are involved in construction and repair. The system repair group does a lot of our capital work in-house, both on the collection system, but also with natural systems and with within the plant as well with under CJ's group. And with our facilities group, and we're really fortunate to have some of the construction capabilities that we have based on the support of this committee in past years. Our maintenance group, there's 45 FTE. It includes 3 programs, our system maintenance, TV flow monitoring, and the swim surface facility maintenance. Those 3 groups are responsible for many of our performance standards, our permit-related performance standards. They're doing things like inspecting the storm and sanitary pipelines, as well as cleaning those pipelines, and also maintaining our vegetated water quality facilities and our street sweeping program. And then the third and smallest group within Utility Operations and Services at 8 FTE is our administrative group. That's where our superintendents and myself as a manager are located, as well as some of our support staff working on our maintenance management system, our fleet services, as well as our business and process improvement pieces. Looking at Utility Operations and Service budget drivers, on the personnel side, we did add 1 FTE to our TV inspection program mid-year, so that's reflected in the FY26 budget. We also, our main drivers are PERS, the salaries and wages, the other OPE. Also, overtime and temporary expenses are in the personnel side. I believe there was a question about what are some of the temporary and overtime purposes. So within Utility Operations and Services, the overtime budget, that helps us to provide 24/7 services. So if there's a call at 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. or there's a call on a Saturday or Sunday and we need to dispatch a crew to resolve an issue, that would be on overtime, as well as some scheduled services such as our leaf season, our leaf drop days. Those are held on Saturdays, so that's an overtime function, as well as the emergency services. We may have a repair that needs to be done and we can't quite stop at the normal end of shift, so overtime would be used then as well. For temporary services, we have seasonal staff that we bring on with our system maintenance group. That's primarily for our trunk line walking, which we can only do during the drier parts of the year. That's when we bring on the seasonal help. They may stay a little bit into the fall and leaf season depending on timing, but that's what some of our temporary staff are for. You will notice there's a drop overall in our temporary budget, and that was due to bringing on 2 electric remote control mowers for our, which is, yeah, they're pretty neat. Next time the group is at Field Ops, we'll make sure to do a demo on them. They're not like the mower that you would get at Home Depot. They're pretty industrial. Staff can stand in a safe place out of the area that they need to be mowing in, and basically with a remote control use these electric industrial mowers. And it saved us on temporary work and also decreased the need for FTE within that swim program.
Is there a fight to have that done?
It does seem to be a popular task, yes.
Why is it more efficient though? Do they program it once and then it does some of it in an automated way, or or is it just faster than a human can do it, or what's the deal?
So previously, we would have a regular tractor-type mower with a mower on the back. And because of the terrain, sometimes they're relatively steep where they would be mowing, we would have to send a crew of 2 for a safety reason. So this, we can send a crew of 1. The crew can stand sometimes on the sidewalk or just in an area where they're very safe, and then run the mowers by themselves. We haven't got to the point of where they're programmed, where it's doing it automated, but that may be coming.
Can I get one for my home?
Raymo is the brand, and if you Google them, they have some really neat displays on their website. On the M&S side, we actually had a decrease in our materials and services for utility operations and services. That was due to 2 primary reasons. Our contracted services dropped $250,000 because of non-annual reoccurring items. So that one specifically is every 4 to 5 years, we hire a contractor to do multi-sensor inspection of our large diameter sewers. So not only do we get TV inspection, but we get sonar data that shows us what the bottom of the pipe looks like under the water, and then we get LiDAR data that shows us what the top looks like, and we can see what is the ovality of the pipe, as well as the video that tells us, and we can see what kind of defects are in some of our larger diameter sewers. That's only, we don't have to do that every year, so that's why those contracted services dropped for this year. It'll come back again in 3 to 4 or 5 years. We'll bring that back to do that again. The professional services also decreased within utility operations and services due to a contract that we had to look at our flow monitoring system, our collection system monitoring study. So that went from $225,000 to $125,000, and that's really the big drivers as far as the drop in the M&S. Otherwise, we're relatively flat across most of our items. The big drivers for us overall are our fuel is about $300,000 as we're driving. Most of our crews are out every day in a vehicle, not necessarily by themselves, but they at least in a pair. The fleet object code is about $520,000, I believe, and that's fleet means repair, so that would be like going in to get an oil change on your car, get the brakes done, and that's a pretty big item for us as well, especially on some of our heavier trucks like our Vactors, our dump trucks. Some of the services and repairs on those can be pretty costly. Also, our contracted services still is a large item, even though it decreased for this year. We have a contract to do our state-required location of utilities. So if a contractor is going to dig, they have to call 811. We're required by law to go out and locate our facilities, our buried underground assets, and we do that via contract to the tune of about $200,000. Also, there are repair and maintenance supplies. That's one of our other big drivers. That's rock for repairs, pipe, different coatings that we put on the inside of a maintenance hole to make sure that they're sound, as well as sewer hose. Like you see in the picture here, that orange hose right there is a high-pressure sewer hose that we have on 7 of our sewer cleaning, and both on Storm and Sandy side. That hose there is probably about 800 to 1,000 feet of hose on that reel. One of my supervisors here, James, it's his program. Where's James? There he is. He just bought a roll of that for just under $4,000 for 600 feet of it. It's expensive. We go through about 4 or 5 rolls a year as it gets worn out. But the part that I wanted to mention particularly about that is in 2021, that roll was $2,500. That $600 roll was $2,500. So we've seen a $1,500 increase in 4 to 5 years. And it's just an indication of kind of some of the things that we've seen on parts and materials and supplies. And when we talk to our vendors, that's just kind of what they're seeing as far as their prices. We don't think they're making any more profit. It's just part of the costs.
Do you guys have your own fleet of like mechanics to work on the trucks and stuff, or do you contract that out?
We have our fleet department. We have 1 fleet manager, and we have 1 equipment tech. We do even oil changes we contract out. So we do a little bit of light repair on a little bit of welding when we need to do some things like that. But for routine preventative maintenance, oil change, brakes, it would go first the light vehicles. It might go to Doherty Ford or Carr Chevrolet. For the heavier vehicles, it goes to General Equipment or Owens Equipment in Portland or Pac West for our sweepers. So almost all of that is contracted out, unlike the counties. It's a different model. Our proposed travel and training, $44,300, about 2% of our materials and services for the group, and our meals and refreshment budget, about $2,700, or 0.1% of our materials and services budget.
Brian, can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
A department of your magnitude, is that too low?
I would like it to be larger, and that's certainly something that we're working through with Kathy and with Rick on how can we meet the food and meal policy and still be cognizant of how much money we're spending. A lot of the things that we've done in the past were really related to crew recognition, and we're seeing, based on some of the IRS rules, we need to have a little different function or a little different purpose for when we have a barbecue or something like that. Right now, in fact, we've done this a few times. Some of the staff are paying out of our pocket when we need to have when a crew is out. We had a crew out on New Year's Eve. They had about 8 to 10 of our folks responding to an event on New Year's Eve. Our supervisors made sure, and the crew actually made sure that they had something to eat for that day. And again, a lot of it is, some of it has to do with making sure that crews are fresh and have food and drinks, and whether it's a hot day or whatever. And some of it is just trying to do team building and show our appreciation for the work that the crews do. Because I think, as you know, the folks that are doing these jobs, they're out, whether it's 100 degrees out or whether it's 30 degrees out, they're out doing their job. So it's I'd like to be able to do a little bit more of the appreciation, but I think we're working through that to figure out how we can make sure to do that and follow all the rules that we need to follow.
I hope there would never be a question about New Year's Eve emergency
Celebration.
food. Like, to me, I don't think we should be having conversations about whether that's appropriate.
I asked that because, I know we're in the news a lot about, and there's different narratives that are being spun out there of this particular situation or topic area, but I also I want us to strike a balance that, because we need to celebrate our employees. They're out there, and I think somebody said, I don't know which budget committee it was, if things are not working out, you'll know, right? Like, your phones are ringing, and they're the ones that pick up the phones and make sure that things get working again. So, and residents appreciate that, and we need to celebrate and appreciate our employees. So while we're in the news and we need to be cognizant and need to be fiscally stewards and really be careful how we internally utilize ratepayers' money, we still need to celebrate our employees, appreciate them, and really celebrate them, the good work they're doing. So that's the reason why I asked you about if it's low, because obviously I take your word for it, and I take your word for the leadership and the executive team. But I just encourage you out there, while we address this situation, also strike a good balance where the celebrating of the employees is really the value that gets centered.
I appreciate those comments very much, and I know our crew will as well. And it's certainly been something that's been a bit of a challenge here for the last 9 months or so, in trying to figure out where is that balance. I think we've definitely swung to the side of almost to nothing. I think we can swing back and find something, hopefully, that folks can be comfortable with and also feel like the public is comfortable with as well. But definitely appreciate those comments, and I know the crew will as well. Continuing with just the overall roll-up for the budget, for utility operations and services, not a lot of changes. The one FTE there is included here in the FY26 proposed. But I did want to make a note, because I think you'll see this throughout some of the next presentations as well. If you look at the FY24 actuals, from FY24 to the FY25 budgeted here, UOPS had 95 FTE in FY24. And then when we moved to FY25, there was the 80 FTE left in field operations. That was the conveyance engineering group that moved to the WET department. You also noticed that the personnel services from FY24 to FY25 increased. And that doesn't really, it could bring a question to you, like, why would that happen when you're moving FTE out of the program? And there's really two reasons for it. One of them is some of those folks or some of those FTE that moved were vacant. So when you look at the actuals, there was no expense there was no expenditure. And then the other reason is that the conveyance engineering group is heavy on capital work. So a lot of their salaries are then billed against the capital projects that they're working on. So I wanted to bring that up because I think you'll see it in a couple more of the presentations, and just it jumped out at me when we were looking and preparing, and with Aaron's help, we made sure that we had a good explanation for that, and I'm sure we can go into more detail if we need to on that. I have just a couple more pieces here that I just wanted to talk about some of the things we're working on before turning it over to Lisa, or to CJ. So this slide here, I called this field focus. It probably really should be personnel focused. And I just wanted to point out a few of the things that we've been working on at Field Ops, kind of under the guise of back to basics. The main one I wanted to point out is about the certification. We have 17 of our crew who have earned or already had their DEQ level 2 or higher certification. That's part of when we do our travel and training, part of that expense to keep those CEUs as required to keep their certification, their required certification up, as well as some of the supervisors and myself that have certifications that are a requirement of our job. That's just the minimum. We also have a number of staff that are working on their certification or have already earned it as well. And when we talk about part of that career progression, that's setting them up nicely when there's an opening at one of our FCMT3 levels to be able to qualify it and to move into that level. So that's the main one I wanted to point out here for today on our personnel side. Also, here on our couple things on our continuous improvement, I mainly wanted to focus on the asset management piece here that Rick mentioned, just to continue that theme. Certainly something that within field operations, we're a little bit lucky in that I don't have as many types of assets that CJ has to maintain at the plant. For the collection system, we have pipes, we have maintenance holes, a number of different types of storm structures, but there's maybe 10 to 12 main types. CJ probably has quite a few more than that, hundreds, yeah. We just have a lot of them. For example, we have 20,000 maintenance holes that we have to maintain as part of the local system. So I think we do a good job right now of a condition assessment on those, which is what I believe, Chair Harrington, what your question kind of referred to. We have a system, it's a national system based on the British Water Resource Center system. It's called Pipeline Assessment and Certification Program, and that is standardizes the grading of defects within a pipe, and with that builds the foundation of our inspection, our condition assessment. Then we look at the severity of if there was a failure of a pipe near a school, near a sensitive area, near a fire station, something like that. What would that cause? And then those get prioritized. Certainly something that we want to spend more time formalizing, because we do a good job right now of the condition assessment and getting on the highest priorities, but it's those next priorities and then planning out into the future that we'd like to spend some more time focusing on for this next year. And I had on the slide here to be consistent with water resource and recovery operations and services. That really should also include our capital planning group, our conveyance engineering group, and all of the various groups that work on assets management.
And I think if I could add a comment that with information that we receive from the CEO, I think we feel really blessed that there are very few outages and mishaps that rise into the press or into customers. Very responsive systems, so if there are problems, you're on it, and it's taken care of so fast, people often don't even realize it. I mean, overnight, we've had customer stories of, wow, I saw your trucks in my neighborhood during the night, and they even paved over already, and it's like magic happened.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. That's something I think we take a lot of pride in, that customer service piece. And that was something when I started in 2010 in this role, that was instilled in me by my previous supervisor, that field operations is customer service, whether it's internal or external, and particularly that external piece where we can do something to help folks, hopefully, and hopefully they don't even see us. That's the goal, definitely.
Ramesh?
Maybe this is a question that's been asked and answered, but just wanted to clarify at this point. So for both the infrastructure and also the maintenance and service equipment that you have, do you have or do you use some kind of a inventory management system where it kind of has a aging or previous history? Because I believe that kind of helps in not only having those things service ready, but also minimizes the expenses in both acquiring and monitoring them.
We have a couple tools that we use there. We have a system called Lucidity that's our maintenance management inventory system. That's where we track the work that we do at an asset level. So if you live, in fact, you could probably tell me where you live if you live within the district, within the area that we serve, and I could tell you the last time we cleaned the system out in front of your home to the date. I could also tell you, here's what the pipe outside your home looks like and the defects that are associated with it, if there are any. We take that information, and then we, in GIS, in the Geographic Information System, we overlay lots of the take the condition pieces and overlay it with the severity of a failure. That's where we get into how close is it to a stream, how close is something to some place that would cause a bigger problem than others. And then we prioritize those with a scoring system.
That's great that you do the kind of failure analysis and kind of get learnings. But is there anything that's done proactively or preventively?
Yes. So we have a work order that we call hotspots. Those are known areas where, because of various reasons, it could be the geometry of the sewer tends to build up fog, the fats, oils, and greases, areas that we know there's roots because they're a problem, and that we service those more frequently. Our typical service interval is once every 4 years we will clean a sewer pipe, but with these hotspots, it could be once a quarter, or once every 6 months. So those are preventative items that we would do on a more frequent basis because we know that there's a problem there. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's probably the direction I was looking for. At some later time, we might even be able to do some analysis on how well were we at preventing rather than how well were we at reacting. So that's usually the concept that's used in a lot of product-oriented programs, but this being a service and utility, my curiosity was open.
Yeah, certainly the preventive maintenance is a lot easier than reactive maintenance. Yes, definitely.
And I'm gonna put on the residential hat and be a resident here and ask the question that you articulated, saying, you know, if you're a resident, you could find out when was the last time your sewer pipe was cleaned. Is that information something that's available on the Clean Water Services website, or as a resident, how would I find that information if I was curious to know?
It's not posted on the website. It would be, you could find a map on the website of what system, whether it's stormwater or a sewer system that serves your area. You could see that on our website, but not that maintenance history. But that's certainly something that we could think about. It's not, we have it internally readily available. If you called our field operations number, that's something that our staff would certainly be able to provide to you.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty sure I'm way over, but I have one last slide here. Just
good, Ryan, less for me.
field operations, because we have about 80% of the fleet, the fleet services is embedded within our group. So I did have one slide on the capital improvement program related to fleet. We have 9 vehicles that are scheduled for replacement based on our asset management approach and looking at age is a piece of it, condition, mileage, repairs. There's a number of pieces that go in to give it a score. 9 this year is what showed up as what we needed to replace. That also includes looking at the vehicles that come up that need to be that are indicated on our system that need to be replaced. Our fleet manager talks with the business unit and does it really need to be. So it's not just strictly what does the score say, but also what makes sense. We do have 6 additions for this year that we're requesting. 2 are to support new FTE. 1 is a new Vector that the board approved as part of a mid-year. 2 are what I call rental replacements. That's where we have rental history where we've rented an item and we have enough rental history to show we use this enough that we need to, it makes sense to purchase it. And then 1 is a new trailer to support and supplement an older trailer that we have. We also have 3 vehicles that are what we're calling carryovers. They've been budgeted in FY25. The vehicles are not complete, so we can't pay for it, so we have to rebudget them in FY26 to the tune of about $632,000. So the expenditure was not made in FY25 because the vehicle was not done. Prior to COVID, this really never happened. It's been happening more often, so I wanted to call that out as something that you'll probably be seeing here next year and at least for the foreseeable future. Any other questions I can answer?
Right. Question on the street sweeping program?
Yes.
What is the service area for that? Does it overlap with the cities?
So the cities, the street sweeping is a task that's part of the local program. So each city and Clean Water Services serves our own areas. By that I mean within the city limits, City of Beaverton will sweep. The unincorporated areas, Clean Water Service, yes, the unincorporated areas within the UGB, Clean Water Services will sweep, with some exceptions. Our yard is very close to some areas that Beaverton would usually sweep, so we sweep those for them, and then they do likewise for us. So we do a little bit of trading, but for the most part, it's strictly by within the city limits that city would maintain and do that task, the street sweeping task.
Great, thank you.
And that's done because it's required by the permit, right?
That's correct. Street sweeping is one of our, it's in our MS4 permit, the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer permit, and it's one of our BMPs. And it's by hours, it's probably one of our, it's one of our highest number of hours. We have 4 sweepers out every day, 40 hours a week, and it is part of the permit requirement.
I think it's one of the most misunderstood parts of community services that are, people see it happening and they think it's happening to keep the streets clean and pretty, and it's not really, that's not why it's being done. So I think it's just important to continue to mention that.
It's definitely something that, there's that street function of keeping the street clean and pretty, but then there's the water quality function that's really our driver. And we're using a sweeper that's called a regenerative air sweeper. It's basically a vacuum cleaner. It is really targeted on the really small particulates. That's where the brake lining, the lead, the copper, the zinc, the antimony, that's where those particulates are really in those small pieces, but it also picks up gravel and other things as well.
I mean, people think it's about beauty and they'd like it more, or why are we wasting money on it? Or I mean, I've heard a variety of different pieces of feedback over the years, so just important to point it out.
Appreciate my-
It's an angel, this is the street angel.
I have a question about clean energy and electrifications of vehicle. I probably should have asked this question earlier to Rick when he was talking about the research and innovations. But is Clean Water having discussions about electrifications of some of these heavy vehicles that's utilized? I know the waste industry is moving towards electrification of their trucks. But is that embracement taking place, or the conversation to embrace that discussion?
Yeah, it's something that we talk about all the time. And our fleet manager, Steve McNeil, is very in tune with what's happening around the industry as well as what some of our other partners are doing or other cities. He's been down to Albany to visit. They have an electric sweeper in Albany and in Corvallis. He's also visited some of the manufacturers. Freightliner has an electric, basically one of the, like a FedEx type van that's coming out that we're looking at in FY27 for a replacement that we have coming up. And we have currently in our fleet, we have a handful of electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles. Probably it's around 6 to 8. And 2 of the new vehicles that we're looking at for this next year, they're Ford SUV or Ford Escape SUV type vehicles. We'll be looking at the plug-in hybrids. Right now, our approach is really on a case-by-case basis. What's the purpose of the vehicle? What's the business unit? Where are they located? Do they have the support, the infrastructure to support it if it's an electric vehicle? But on the heavy side, unlike the waste management or Pride or some of the other garbage type services, we haven't seen the same level of development yet for say a dump truck or for a Vector. At some point, it's probably coming. There's some pretty heavy pressure on the manufacturers to produce electric vehicles and then be able to have to sell a certain number of electric vehicles to be able to sell diesel vehicles, but the energy requirements and the weight on our Vectors, for example, are so far, they appear to be prohibitive on the electric vehicle side. So we're not seeing that yet very much on a few of our really specialized vehicles. But it's definitely something we're continuing to watch, and I'm sure that it's only a matter of time before we have a product that we think is going to be something that we can invest in.
All right. I'm going to ask this now, though it may not be a direct question for you so much as maybe a Kathleen question. I'm thinking about, what kind of contingencies, what kind of effects the tariffs haven't even come into place, but how vulnerable and how much of the budget, the capital, the replacement, going to be vulnerable to that?
I will say you're aware of that, and it's one of the when we looked at all the issues with federal grants and exposures with our build record bonds, that's one that's on the list, and we're watching that. Yeah, there could be vulnerability. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the most significant risks is construction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steel, electrical components. So that's why the partner cities are seeing $1,000 a square feet. So far, we've been able to manage our construction, but they're getting impacted. When they're trying to replace brakes on some of these trucks, we used to be able to do it in a day. Now it's taking how long? 2 weeks? Yeah. So we're really getting impact in terms of efficiency. The cost for those brake relinings have gone up. But Clean Water Services is able to at least manage it within its budget because the budget is resilient. But the moment we start seeing Perry's projects start escalating beyond what we normally plan for, we know we have to slow down things. Yeah. But so far, we've been able to manage that issue, but we'll just have to see. Yeah, but it is a risk, and I really appreciate that. And we talk about that.
From our chemical suppliers,
Yep.
that they're looking at trying to do a pass-through of up to 15%. And if you look at our holistic chemical budget of $6 million, that's a fairly significant number. We've not just agreed to take that, we'll be in negotiations and try and negotiate that number down. But the lead was 15% pass-through.
Yeah. The other risk is, in the U.S., we used to have multiple vendors, right, with multiple manufacturing. Now that has shifted where we think we have 3 vendors, but the reality is they buy it from the same supply. So we actually went down statewide over sodium hypochlorite, right? Yeah.
So we're in competition with the drinking water folks,
Yeah.
and who has a bigger need.
So the supply chain risk is really, it's a risk that we have to manage in the long run. So they began looking for alternative disinfection chemicals. Yeah, so it is, thank you for the risk. Yes, appreciate
It
that.
also leads us back into research and innovation as we start looking at on-site generation of hypochlorite, maybe alternative disinfection chemicals, different ways of doing that type of work. They help to do the groundwork to provide the feasibility studies for us to go down and investigate further.
Diane, I just want to understand I understand the things are costing more, but a brake job that used to get done in a day taking 2 weeks, is that a supply, we can't get the brake pads kind of problem, or what's the?
For our heavy vehicles, it's the staff. They just don't. A lot of the long-term staff that have been there have turned over, and they just don't have enough folks. So they have the same amount of vehicles coming in, but they just don't have the same amount of staff.
So the vendor can't deliver on the service time. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you for your comments and questions, and I would look forward to talking with you about some more of these items here in the future. Thank you.
All right, CJ, you have a lot of time.
Oh, hello. That's good.
I heard you make a comment.
Public speaking was never my first love.
Before CJ starts, I want to share something. CJ is retiring on June 30th.
Oh,
That is true. I've been with the district for 22 and a half years.
Yeah, I want to share his service here because it's a great story of how a person can enter at a job and they have growth and development within the organization. So guess what job CJ had when he first came here? He was an electrician, too. And then he became the maintenance supervisor.
Correct.
And this is at Forest Grove and then Rock Creek, right? And then he became a treatment plant superintendent. And then he became the mechanical maintenance supervisor. Oh, I got it a little backwards. Mechanical maintenance, see, it's the list, right? So mechanical maintenance supervisor first, and then you became the plant superintendent. And now he's our water resources services manager. So he started off at a single plant, and then now he's responsible for all of the plants.
Wow.
So I really wanted to celebrate him. And
And I have to say, a lot of that is for the board and for our Clean Water Services Management, because part of what allowed me to grow within the organization was Clean Water Services' ability to allow you to work and attend school and have some reimbursement. So I started here with a high school education, some military education, took advantage of Clean Water's program, went through PCC for the first 2 years, Portland State for the second, for the business degree I hold. So it's everything, and I appreciate my time here.
thank you, CJ.
And with that, I shall beg for money. No.
That's in retirement.
Awesome transition.
You beg
Now, this is quite a privilege to be able to sit before you all and hopefully answer any questions and maybe have some clarity for what's coming up for this next year. Again, I'm the Operations and Services Manager for Clean Water Services, WRD. 4 treatment plants, 44 lift stations. Ryan did a very good job of describing more or less our service area and what we do, as well as the contracted services bit that field operations has for locating our underground infrastructure. As part of our 44 lift stations, we also have taken on locating our pressurized infrastructure, our internally owned power lines, which we have several of across the county, along with our own owned fiber optics, which we have in several different locations as well. So when you get the call for we're going to dig a hole, sometimes if it's near a service area of our lift stations or other infrastructure, our pump station crew will get called as well to go in and do that locating, offsetting the cost of what it would take for a contracted services contractor to do this work. They used to do the work and they were so inept at it and we had so many corrections from it that it was just more cost effective for us to do it ourselves. But it is a big part of that particular program, of which encompass 8 FTEs. So within the scope of all of this, we do this treatment of our water that comes into our facility and recover our resources 24/7, 365, in the heat of the sun, in the freezing weather in the winter, rainstorms, windstorms, fire, anything, we are there. We are a group that are mostly invisible to the ratepayers, and all of our group deeply care about being good stewards. So our budget drivers, we have had 19 individuals grow throughout their careers, which included a 5.2 request for increase in personnel services. Our materials and services and some of our other budget line items have some anomalies, as you'll see, and most of that was due to the reuse and biosolids programs being transferred into WET. So a lot of what would have gone into their fueling budget, their M&S, again, was transferred to the other department. And as we're focused on travel, training, and meals, with our 100 staff, we're at about 600 ahead for travel and training. Part of what goes into that travel and training, we have in-house electricians and instrument technicians that require 16 hours of continuing education to upkeep their licenses. And our wastewater treatment operators that are running these facilities, many of them are certified through DEQ, Class 4, and they require 20 hours of training every 2 years. So part of that travel training mostly leads into the 2 major conferences a year. One is PNCWA and one is WEFTEC. WEFTEC is our local, that's the regional that is held at either Chicago or New Orleans, which we are very particular about who gets to go, not the whole group gets to go. and the PNCWA, where this year it's going to be in Portland, because it's local, we'll have a lot more people that will go to that. We also take advantage of free local things, local symposiums, different things to give CEUs to try to be very responsible in that manner. So as you see, and as Ryan talked about our personnel services and the anomalies, we do have many vacancies, and that help offset the difference between our actual expenditures, our budgeted, and our proposed. Again, we are very hopeful that of the 90% that HR fills, more of them are our staff than other departments, but that's just being very selfish on my part. Again, material and services down, mostly due to biosolids reuse, which is overall downturn to our overall budget of 4%.
Can I ask a question? I think it's really useful in the budget presentations to hear about the travel and training. And I'm wondering if, Kathy or Diane, you might know, out of the whole over 450 employee set, if what gross level, and you don't have to report it now, but if you know what the gross level percentage is of people in the employee workforce who have any kind of credential training that involves some continuing education units, others, it's, finance and all these wise CPA people and HR people who have to get this training over time, because I think it's really helpful to put in context as we have the roll-ups of these different major categories. Thank you.
Well, and one of the other things that are relevant in this forum is that back during COVID, a lot of the industries went to more online classes, and it really allowed a lot more of us to be available for a lot lower fee to retain our CEUs and attend these. However, now that COVID is in the rearview mirror, a lot of them are insisting on in-person, which incur the extra travel and overnights.
It makes sense.
Quick question though. All these certifications and other things, I don't know the number of or the percentage of people, like the chair was asking, how many of them need this certification on a continuous basis? And is there any part of that that can be done in-house?
And yes and yes. Our electricians and instrument techs are required by the state of Oregon to be licensed. The Class 4 wastewater licenses are for the signatories. However, we insist that people of supervisory nature have the 4s. And that way, for continuity of service, continuity of business, we can take the place of any of us signatories that may be out ill on FMLA. And also, we highly encourage our next line of senior operations staff to retain the Class 4 to where they have the ability to move up in the organization should an opening arise. So that's that component. And as far as doing the CEUs in-house, our research and innovation team have a couple of different times been able to take their presentations that they have delivered for different conferences, tailor them to the need of the Oregon requirements, and get credits for them to present that in-house. Yeah. So yes, we have.
Oh, that's good. Out of the budgetary framework, one of the recommendations I would have is let these trainings not stop at what's the minimum required for certification, but let it be a little more wholesome so that it not only gives them the skills they need, but it also prepares them to be able to respond to unexpected, new, or extra situations. So this is free advice, but
And we have opportunities similar to that. For instance, there are certain microscope classes that have been put on at different times at some of the universities that we've sent some of our process analysts to be able to identify some upsets to the treatment process, to give them maybe a leg up on a different approach to correct those.
Thank you. No, that's a good step, so need to continue that. Thank you.
Yes, sir, we plan to. One of the things I'd like to highlight is in trying to do more with less, we've heard that several times, the back to basics, it's really an intentional, not that we didn't work as teams internally before, but we're really trying to do a better job of collaborating across the different groups between WRD and the lab, because the lab always is the final number generator or the approved values that go to DEQ. We've worked with the lab for years. R&I has come along and been very helpful as far as giving us new ways to interpret our data and to gather different data than is actually required just for our permit. And then being able to help us along to use these additional data points to help predict future anomalies or to help correct problems that we're seeing. One of these problems we're having right now is the influent sewer to the Durham treatment plant has changed its characterization, which means what's flowing in is different than when the treatment plant was designed. And what that does to us is it makes us run more chemicals. And we've been growing our own fermenting tanks to create these volatile fatty acids, which volatile fatty acids, for people that don't know, it's just basically it's fermented sewage that helps a certain biological phosphorus removal system be effective. And why we care about that is because it allows us to use less aluminum as a flocculant to remove phosphorus. And if we don't have enough of these volatile fatty acids, we're going to use more alum, we're going to use more chemicals, it's going to cost us more. And not only that, it's a waste of resource. So by us working closely with R&I, the lab, environmental services to go out and survey the sewer shed, we're getting closer to determining why it is that the characterization has changed, and if it's a particular industry or compound that's being discharged, that we can get corrected and get our influent sewer back to where we would like it, again, to save us money, be more efficient, effective, et cetera. The other kudo I would like to give is to digital solutions. I know our IT department, again, like what Diane said, so much of what we do is based on computer analysis, data collection, recovery, trying to be able to present it in a manner that anybody can see and understand where we're going. And without those programs, without the program support, without the network capability, we're not going to have those type of tools to be able to be successful. So they're one more of those groups you don't think much about until you try to turn your computer on and it doesn't work. Continuous improvement, WRD is focused heavily on condition assessment, continuous improvement, trying to find ways to extend the reliable life of a lot of our equipment. Some of our treatment plants were built in the 50s and have been grown over time. A lot of expansion was done in the 90s to meet the 0.1 new water quality limit, which is now making all the equipment 30 years old. So does it mean that they're old and we have to replace them all? No, but they do take different care and feeding than what it would if it was a brand new system. Recently, we worked together with all the groups to find out why our 30-year-old filters were underperforming. We've brought in a consultant as well, and with that, we adjusted how we approach our backwash of these filters, which is a way that we do internal cleaning, and it's been highly successful, and we are going to be confident in making our permit due to these changes. Part of all of that has to do with the memorialization of what we did and what went well, what went wrong. And as one of your group has asked earlier, yes, create preventive maintenance to make sure we stay on track to where we don't get to where we are now with poorly performing infrastructure.
Guess what that mud ball is?
Yeah, huh?
That's a pretty impressive ball.
That's a mud ball. There are some bigger ones too, but. And a lot of that's just leftover chemical, and a lot of that is due to, it's just due to design and washing not occurring as it should. It's kind of like having dirty spots on your clothes. Your washing machine's not being effective. You need to do it differently. Part of, again, us trying to be mindful of ratepayers' support for us. We take on cost reduction efforts. For instance, some of our aging equipment, the parts you can't get anymore, or it's long lead time, incredibly expensive because they've been on the shelf for 30 years. So we have some mills, lathes available to us that we can do these parts if it's financially in our favor, as long as we can maintain the quality. We also keep going the fats, oils, and grease program, and that has brought us in non-rate revenue of $3.3 million this last year as aggregate. That's the fats, oils, greases, septage, Ostara, all of those things together. So that's a healthy offset to our other.
That's net, or that's,
No,
that's just the total revenue?
That's just total revenue.
What were the costs associated with that?
That would be something we would have to get back with you later on a line-by-line effort if you're.
I think it'd be good to make sure we know that it's at least positive.
It is at least positive, I can give you that, absolutely.
Investments, when we bought Ostara and installed it, and then out of the revenue over time, we can show when we turn that positive.
I'd also like to see a separation of FOG, Ostara, and the septic receiving piece. So, thank you.
And part of that, for instance, Ostara we have to do regardless, because we have to pull the phosphorus out of our waste stream, or out of our process stream from our centrifuge. Otherwise, it would go down the drain back to the beginning of the facility, and we would treat it in a circle to the point of diminishing returns. So it would have to come out anyway. So by being able to monetize part of it, at least we're getting some sort of a return on something we would have to do anyway.
It's got to, I mean, just to clarify, it's got to come out because we can't put that amount back into the
Correct.
river.
Because removing the phosphorus is one of our permit limits at 0.11.
Just making sure I'm connecting the dots properly.
Correct, sir.
Well, I think, just to follow up with that, I think there's an environmental intangible here that it isn't included into the cost and the revenues and all of that. So it's a real balance, and I really like that program.
Oh, it is. It's a wonderful program, and all of these are financially net positive. The margins may move back and forth again with investment and things of that nature, but yes, I'm sure we can.
Yeah, and the other reason for the Ostara process wasn't always to just get rid of phosphorus. There's something called struvite that forms, and it plugs up the pipe. I wish we had one of those fancy pictures that we used to show. So there's a benefit of the operations and maintenance, and that was the business case for Ostara, and we can bring that forward and show how it's turned net positive. Yeah.
It's both very heavy. It's removal of that and minimization of struvite, which is, kind of looks like sugar on the inside of pipes. It's a real crystalline, hard, I don't think it would taste like sugar.
Yeah, I was going to say, CJ, come on.
I was channeling
Come on.
you. Then we also have cost reduction partnerships. So in trying to be fiduciarily responsible, we are part of PGE's demand response program, in which case PGE pays us to reduce our load during peak times, and on average, we get about $66,000 back. So they'll call us with a couple hours' notice saying, we need you to reduce your load by X amount. And typically that causes us to shut down some HVAC equipment, reduce some pumping, store some water in different places, and we've been able to, with almost no risk, again, recoup $66,000 a year on average. The other thing that we do with cogeneration from Durham, at some point we'll have a Rock Creek facility on either CNG or something of that nature, but currently we're about 1.1 million in power costs that we're offsetting. And most recently, we've had a check from Forest Grove Light and Power that was from the incentive program called Energy Smart Industrial through Bonneville Power of $189,000, and that was for our Forest Grove UV system. And that is, not only do we install the system to be energy efficient, but the utilities recognize and try to benefit those that put in energy efficient systems, because that keeps them from having to grow their grid. And again, you know, we like to toot our own horn some, and Peak Performance Awards, we have this year 3 platinums and 1 silver award. It's very difficult to get platinum awards through NACWA, which is a nationally recognized association. This is perfect compliance for treating over 28 billion gallons of water, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 3,000 opportunities a year to have one hiccup that can make us not perform at that level. And of course, we can't do it without environmental services helping us maintain water quality, the lab and all their testing, support of the board, engineering, infrastructure, and all of that. Again, we're very proud to be performing at that level. And kind of a fun fact, I hit the wrong button. I did it now. Any idea? Went black. Is that the center? Technology. Anyway, one of the fun facts, there it is. Well, there it is. Hey. Here we go. One of the fun facts, 28 billion gallons of water. What's 28 billion gallons of water? I got a cup of water. There's 8 ounces. There's 16. It's a big gulp. 28 billion gallons of water. If you make a cube of water, that's enough cubes of water to go from the Earth to the moon 3 times. Stacked one next to each other. That's how much water goes through clean water services every year. 28 billion gallons. And as far as the energy that we generate between our solar, our cogen, et cetera, is about 400 kilowatt hours per million gallons, which is about enough to run 1,000 homes for a year or to just turn the lights on for 500,000 homes for a day. We have our 120 million cubic feet of biogas flared as a reminder that we have opportunities for conservation. We show our 25 million therms of natural gas as kind of areas that we could conserve. So it's back to engineering, wet, and everybody else to kind of adjudicate how those are offset of each other. And like Ryan says, we got a lot of equipment that we maintain. And I think if there's any other questions.
So this is your last budget.
Yeah.
Hopefully you remember they did okay.
Better than okay. You're all doing better than okay.
Awesome. Well, I will pass.
No, I have one question for you.
Okay, good.
It may fall under you, I'm not sure, but I just remember in the past, we've had several conversations about renewable natural gas.
Yes.
That's under your department, is
The
it?
operation of it would be, the actual execution is between engineering and Diane. I think that's still under evaluation, RNG versus, maybe you could expand on that?
Harry and Rick that are looking at it. So at Rock Creek, currently we're flaring digester gas. So they're looking at the options of do nothing. And the do nothing is not very sustainable, just losing the gas. And they're looking at a new model with Northwest Natural Gas that looks pretty promising, I think, to create renewable natural gas. And they're going to bring it before the board on, Tuesday, next Tuesday.
That'll be great because that's a great program. I never have liked the fact that we flare, but I realize we have to. I'd be very interested in the renewable natural gas program.
And Northwest Natural Gas is also coming.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yep.
So the very last question of your career.
I only wish. Go
So
ahead, sir.
the forest grow, it says 5 or fewer violations. What were the violations and can you work on them?
So what happened at Forest Grove is a very unique treatment plant in which we have what's called a natural treatment system that's coupled to our basically gray infrastructure. And as part of a natural treatment system, there's a lot of variability as far as wildlife. And currently we have a very tight, what's called suspended solids limit. And if a duck were to land in the wrong spot and splash at the exact time that we're taking a sample, that would be too much solids in the water. And although we can't swear it was a duck, we had times that were spawning seasons with carp and other things where we had not expected that had put us over the total suspended solids limit for the week. And that was our one violation that we had, which cost us the award. So we're continuing to, putting filters on the end of a natural treatment system doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. However, working with DEQ, Environmental Services, the WET team, we're trying to find better ways of making sure that our water is meeting all of the grades that we need to without having some of these anomalies like fish spawning. Thank goodness we weren't sampling that day, but we had the GIS folks out wandering through the area trying to see how deep the water was. And it's like, well, you're stirring up mud in front of my processes.
So please stop.
Doggone
That
GIS
was-
people, I mean, what do you do with them?
Well, and,
Luckily, it wasn't a day we were discharging.
but you know that Forest Grove area, there's plenty of nutria in there, and they stir up
They
a
do,
lot
too.
of soil and suspend.
We are
Yeah.
very aware of that. Jared and the Reuse Biosolids Fernhill group are continually trying to find ways to dissuade those little fellows from living there. It's just one of those natural things that we have created a buffet with all of these nice native plants that they love to eat. They're an invasive. The reason why they're everywhere and we can't get rid of them is because they do so well in our environment. So yes, we are very aware of the nutria and are ready to be happy if they leave. Thank you, sir.
The other thing,
Welcome to the elite retired.
and the good thing about our Regulatory Affairs Department, you know, treatment standards on solids are set for treatment plants. They're not really set for a wetland setting. So the ability to do the research that we need to talk about solids. So is an algae cell that comes from a natural treatment system a good thing because it has good algae? So it's really allowing that regulatory discussion to occur. So, but thank you, CJ.
And it's even bigger than that. Our natural plants that we put in there create a seed bank that we've seen migrate all the way downriver. There's just so many positive benefits. It's a shame that, again, some of these statutory constraints don't have a little bit of room to be able to allow us to operate better than what we are, but we're working on it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have been told we are out of time for this session. But I think so I will try to go through a little quickly, and please interrupt if I skip over anything in the interest of time.
We're fine. There's another day scheduled too.
My name is Lisa Huntington. I'm the director of our Natural Systems Enhancement and Stewardship Department, sometimes referred to as Watershed, Natural Systems, NSES. If you are following along in your budget book, you can find us starting on page 273. If you're looking at your roadmap, we start on page 193. Our department has 4 budgeted programs displayed on this slide. The first 3 represent our organizational divisions, and you will find a roadmap for each of those programs in the roadmap. The administration really is the managers and then the department-wide support. At a very basic level, our team is responsible for the planning, design and delivery, monitoring and long-term stewardship of all of our natural assets that we need to meet compliance with our permit. We'll not read all of these tasks, but we do a lot of great work. In terms of our overall budget drivers, changes between fiscal year 25 and 26, we see a slight increase in personnel services. We are moving 2 staff positions to the new centralized GIS program, which you'll learn about later. We did have some redesignations or promotions last year, and also kind of that overall increase associated with COLA and PERS. We have a net decrease in our materials and services budget of over $400,000. We're pretty proud of that because it is the result of a lot of hard work and trying to increase our efficiency, to do things better. We're also working with our partners to leverage their investments to accomplish our work. Our proposed travel and training is $51,500. We do have professional engineers in our team and also professional wetland scientists. So we do have that continuing education driver. But also this work is continuing to evolve and advance very quickly. And so it's important that we continue to show up at these trainings and learnings so that we are up on the forefront of what's happening with restoration science. We, to the extent that we can, attend local things. We're very fortunate to have River Restoration Northwest in Skamania, which is a very top-end conference, and it's pretty nearby, and also some great local stormwater as well. And $900 for meals and refreshments. It is actually inclusive of one department retreat and a little extra if we need anything else in accordance with our policy. But we have, as Ryan alluded to, there was a definite shift in the last year trying to kind of limit those. It's new for this year.
I will say that the policy was written to the IRS standards, that the reason why you would provide a meal and not have it be as taxable is it's at the convenience of the employer, which means it's on site as part of a meeting that expands before and after lunch. So we do continue to offer lunch and meals with trainings that meet that requirement. We are offering one departmental retreat or type of meeting each year. Emergency is always paid for, and just so you're aware. But yeah, we're really trying to structure it around the IRS rules. And then we do one all district-wide event for the organization.
This is where corporate America spoils employees. They hire. I used to get a 6% of my total budget for travel, entertainment, and people.
Well, now we're trying to move towards being transparent and in line with other agencies in the food that we offer and the culture within our organization.
The good news about finding the right balance is the team will be reviewing the requirements and what is paid for, and it allows to have that discussion with the board. And just like what Jason said, we did that with a retirement. Was it just cake and punch, or could they have pizza too for a 30-year employee that was retiring? So we're going to find the right balance yet again. So.
More the optics than the
Yes. But I own that. So.
Here are the numbers to see the trend in our budget over the years. We have a net reduction of 7.1% this year. If you're paying close attention, similar to Ryan, you'll see our fiscal year 23 and 24 personnel services are lower, even though our FTE has gone down, and that is really associated with some vacancies that were in the department for a long time, including my own was only filled last year. So,
Can I ask a question, Chair? This slide and the next one. So in the Q&A document on page 18, I had asked a question from CIP information, but I just want to verify that with this information and what you get into in the next slide with the growing portfolio, I really appreciated all these answers, but this particular one, there's this interplay between the operations and this capital, that the way you're doing all this plant material, leveraging other grants, that I would just encourage you, if it doesn't break any page rules, to expand this information there, because it's a very powerful story. Because I asked the dangerous question, now at the passage of time, have these investments really paid off instead of investing in chillers? The answer, crisp answer, is absolutely. But there's a richer answer in the Q&A, and I think that's very valuable information for our ratepayers and our city partners to have access to. Thank you.
Thank you. We can, when we go to the adopted, we could take these questions and get some answers in the document. Thank you,
Yeah,
Chair.
they're great responses to all the questions. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the lead-in to my next slide. So one of the big portions of work that my team is responsible for delivering is what we call our SHADE program. We recently celebrated 20 years of water quality trading for temperature. Essentially, we plant riparian vegetation to shade the stream so that we can offset the thermal load coming from our water resource recovery facilities. Since 2005, we have enhanced 115 stream miles. For context, that's the same distance to drive from Portland to Olympia, Washington. Not quite to the moon, but still a very long distance. That has generated 641 million kilocalories of thermal credit. We traded a 2-to-1 ratio, so we've actually realized 1,282 million kilocalories of solar load intercepted. Google suggests that that's an equivalent energy to what would be required to melt 18 tons of ice. So it's a significant amount of thermal energy we're able to intercept, has a really huge benefit to the watershed, in addition to all the other ecosystem services.
Well, and considering the standards that we have to meet
Yes.
for water temperature going back into the Tualatin, that's very critical.
Yep. Yep. Also of interest, when the water quality trading program was first initiated, there was an expectation that we would maintain credit for 20 years total at these sites. That is not reflective of the life cycle of these assets. And since that time, we've negotiated with DEQ to maintain thermal credits as long as the site is providing specific function, which is great because it's more cost effective to maintain these sites than to create new. And so that has also shifted our approach for long-term stewardship. We're on these sites longer. The good news is as they become more established, it's a less of a per acre dollar, but that's a really important part of our program work.
So Lisa, I want to make sure that I'm hearing that correctly, because there was a lot of pressure to keep finding more and more areas to be able to shade. And am I understanding now that you can continue to get credit for longer and that takes the pressure off to an extent from finding new sites?
We're still looking for new sites, and we're actually working on a new thermal compliance roadmap. So we're kind of taking the next look at what are the strategies to maintain thermal compliance into the future. We expect that we're still going to have to find new areas, but the good news is we don't have to stop taking credit for what we've already done.
I also have a question, and that is, we're talking about the shade tree program. And I remember when we started out, I think it was 1 million trees. Do we know, I know it also grew exponentially. Do we know what the end number is approximately of trees planted or bushes planted or?
We do know that, and I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's over 15 million. We are also working on an update to our Healthy Streams plan, and part of that work is to quantify what have we accomplished. So that will be a metric that we will be able to report on.
I need to know so I can scratch out that number on my hat.
Perfect.
So, thank you. I don't want a new hat, I just wanted the right number.
Your hat says 15+ million or something, I think, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I have an old hat.
Yeah, so yes.
Then you haven't been planting your trees. I don't know.
Also, just briefly, in addition to the SHADE program, we also work to deliver natural assets to meet our stormwater requirements. A lot of this is in that fee-for-service model where we can support our co-implementers and developers, something like a resilient stream corridor project for regional stormwater management, and also the vegetated corridor enhancement fee.
Sure. So maybe I haven't understood that correctly. When you say fee-based programs, and the next one's a fee program, Is it the fee you charge the people who participate in that?
Kathy, can you help me say that right? When we're doing, so my understanding as an engineer, not a finance person, is that in the case of a regional stormwater management solution like Resilient Streams, this would be something that a developer could pay into instead of providing stormwater management onto their own property. And so in that case, it would be a fee the developer would pay. I think it's regional stormwater management charge.
It's like a,
Fee in lieu.
A mitigation option. So
it's like a
another-
trading program.
It's kind of.
Okay.
It's, you know, on a small scale, we have a fee in lieu program where a developer could pay a fee in lieu of building a stormwater facility. This is another iteration of that, where we've built the facility that could handle flow from their site, and they could choose to pay into that. And we're still working on some of that accounting process.
Right, so there's two. There's a fee in lieu, which you just described, because it doesn't make sense for a small subdivision, let's say 12 or less, to put a big water quality facility in. It would actually be better that we could deal with it on more of a regional basis. And then the other one is payment to provide. So when they have a streamside development and they need to uplift the riparian zone, rather than doing it themselves, they could do a payment to provide, and this team could do it. Then you get better continuity and scale.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was thinking, if I'm as a developer, I'm already putting some of these features, why am I also paying a fee for that? But
Yes, it would.
your explanation helps. Okay. Maybe we should do like a incentive if they do it all by themselves and do it better, right?
I feel like a similar theme across the district is how can we maximize benefit while improving efficiency? Our team, I think, really embodies that with the work that we do. Rick mentioned the integrated projects where we have gray infrastructure that might intersect with a natural resource. We look for opportunities to partner with them. In some cases, we're able to do mitigation that is required for a project, often at a much lower cost than what a consultant might charge. But we're also looking for those opportunities. Can we get some shade credit here? Can we get some stormwater management function as well? And there's a great efficiency in kind of combining forces on those projects. We also work very closely with our external partners. We really can't do this work alone. As a general rule, we are not buying property for this work. We are not paying for access. So we partner with folks like Metro or Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District, others that have land or access to land, and work collaboratively. There's often a lot of investment on their end to complement our investment. So like the net benefit to the project is greater than either of us could do on our own. The ecological management unit is how we are approaching our maintenance of our more established restoration sites. And we have this new way of contracting where we give the contractor specific performance standards, and they're the ones to recommend the actions that need to be done to get there. And in that way, we see them as a partner in this work as well. Also, as our portfolio of assets that we maintain continue to grow, we are looking to find efficiencies in how we can monitor and report compliance. We're using things like rapid qualitative monitoring and some remote sensing tools to accomplish that.
Is there some way you summarize these things at some point in time, saying we took these measures and an equivalent saving was so much or so on? Or are they just, yeah, we did it, there was some.
So, with our ecological management unit as an example, we are able to see the cost per acre of that approach compared to the cost per acre when we're having to do a site by site by site. So in that case, we are able to very clearly say, this strategy has saved us this much money. Other ones are a little more ambiguous. We do a lot of work with our plant material program, and as you can see, we have a net reduction of 400,000 combined multiple things. So there's a little bit of both. I will say my team is very curious and data-driven, so there is probably a lot of data that I don't, can't speak to offhand.
But data is available.
But data is available, and it is a real culture of continuous improvement.
Okay, good, thank you.
Quick question from hearing about this. Over the years, you've all sensitized us through the presentation about the change in climate and weather circumstances and flashiness especially. As part of all your monitoring, sensors and all of that, are you also including the wear and tear, I guess for lack of a better term, of how the frequency of events during what used to be drier months? It seems like our drier months are expanding and the wetter months have narrowed in terms of time, but the volume has changed. And so you guys do a lot of planning, you do a lot of monitoring. Is that part of the mix that you look at?
So, a little bit. It's not on the slides.
That's
but,
okay.
As I mentioned, we're looking to refresh our Healthy Streams plan.
Okay.
And we think that, and if you look at the Healthy Streams original plan, they did speak to that idea of hydromodification is the word the regulators use. We did not have a hydromodification standard at that time, but it was a concern for the health of the stream, so that plan does talk about that flashiness. Really, the way we see that is in erosion and incision of our streams. So the way we're kind of tracking that is with the condition assessment of the streams. It's probably the best way. You also teed up, thank you for talking about threats to our natural systems. Risk management and resilience is another important part of our work. We are already seeing the climate change. We are already seeing invasive pests come into the area. And so a key part of the work our team does is to try to understand these changes, what the risks are. We work collaboratively with a lot of partners in the region and universities to understand the risks, to share information about what we can do to mitigate, manage those risks. One way is to just increase the resiliency of these lands. So things like plant diversity are super important. If you plant 20 plants instead of 5, hopefully at least one of those 20 is going to like the new future conditions. We have a really interesting climate adaptive plant material research project underway, also in collaboration with partners. And we're continuing to use an adaptive management approach for our work. So having that flexibility if we need to intervene, we can do that. Another important thing with resiliency is the resiliency of our people, both internal to the district and external to the district. So that workforce development, sharing knowledge as part of this community practice. How are we working with our contractors and our nurseries to make sure they have the right capacity and skills they need to deliver the work that we need? How can we, give them some stability in their business in a way that also gives us some cost savings? Those are some people resilience work. That's it. That's it for me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is our business services functional area, started by Diane and Elizabeth. We are running a little bit over time, so if we could try to go more quickly, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chair Song. In case I haven't said it yet already, Elizabeth Edders, Chief of Staff here at Clean Water Services. I'm going to kick us off here. As you noted, we're switching over to the other side of the house. We've been talking about our engineering services, our utility operations, and now we're going to the more administrative side that supports all of that good work. So another snapshot, we've taken a high-level look at this already, but we'll be going through the Office of the CEO, Finance and Accounting, Business Operations and Strategy, Digital Solutions, Human Resources, Legal and Compliance Services, Regulatory Affairs, and Regional Utility Services for the remainder of the afternoon. So I am going to walk us through the slides for the Office of the Chief Executive Officer. You can refer to pages 135 to 149 in your budget book or pages 3 through 9 in the roadmap. And if I'm going a little fast, it's because I'm trying to abide by our chair's direction here. So the Office of the CEO is now a fairly small but mighty team. We have 3 people under the district administration, our CEO, and 2 folks that are helping to support in the implementation, board management, and administer some of the strategic initiatives that are coming out of our leadership office. We also have a new program under the Office of CEO, which is emergency management. That's 1 FTE. Our emergency manager has been on board about 4 or 5 months now, so still getting her feet under her and doing an assessment of the organization, but is looking to really evaluate our systems and identify areas to enhance resilience and coordinate not only with the county but with other regional partners. Last but not least, government affairs. That's 3 FTE, which includes myself, as well as Tracy Rainey, our lobbyist or government affairs manager, and a new grants analyst, really taking a centralized enterprise approach to seeking additional resources and easing some of that burden on ratepayers. When it comes to the budget drivers, Diane covered some of this earlier in the presentation, right, with the rehoming of the executive team to their departments, as well as moving of the communications and community engagement team under our USD. So my colleague Joe Gall will talk about the communications team. We had one addition with the executive administrative transfer from business operations and strategy. And really, that's some additional hands and help to support our work in coordination with the board. What I want to spend a little bit of time on here actually is on our materials and services, because it looks different from other departments at Clean Water Services. We have higher proposed travel and training and meals and refreshments, and there are good reasons for that. So under proposed travel and training, we have our federal advocacy trips that includes both staff and board travel. We also have training for, as Ramesh had referenced earlier, how can we figure out ways to be clever and be, bring some of this in-house? It's not $7,000 of training for our emergency manager. It's for our emergency manager to train up to 50 people on the incident command system. So how can we find ways to really scale up and be efficient with these dollars? And as far as the federal advocacy piece, we're living through really interesting times. I think we may or may not actually engage in that travel in order to talk with our members of Congress. We definitely engage with them when they come back for August recess. We actually like to get them out and touring our facilities. That's one of our roadmap goals, is getting elected officials out and touring our facilities, because to actually be on site and see how we work is to understand so much more. And education is a big part of our ability to effectively advocate. But we need that flexibility there, especially when it comes to events like, or major projects like Scoggins Dam, which is moving toward 60% design. Under the meals and refreshments, meals for these full-day board learning, board work session, full-day engagements. And then we have our Clean Water Advisory Commission, right? That's a 15-member group, meets about 10 times a year at dinner. We're looking at the GSA level for meals on that. So it's kind of more external focused, or for our advisory folks, it's not so that we can have internal food. So again, this, because of the movement of so many staff that we've covered a couple times already, there's a lot of noise when you look at just the snapshot here. So I think if there are specific questions as we get into line items, that may be more helpful, just because of the diminishment in overall FTE within the Office of the CEO budget. And then just to highlight, one of the things, I'm wrapping up my first year with Clean Water Services. One of the visions that I had for our government affairs and for emergency management was to really take, I think I referenced, an enterprise level approach. How can we centralize and serve the district and treat folks like clients, right? Work with all the various departments and say, what are your needs? When we hear that, gosh, these regulations are making our total suspended solids look a little funny, and it doesn't actually make sense ecologically or for how our systems work. Well, I file that away and I say, how can we help make law and policy and regulations align with what's the best possible outcomes for our employees and for ratepayers? And so that's one of the services that I'm trying to imbue within the government affairs team. And having the addition of grants is also fantastic, so that we're not just looking at, okay, what is congressionally, directed spending, not just, what are opportunities in Salem, but are there strategic grants that we can look at, governmental or non-governmental, to help bring down the pressure on those ratepayer dollars and to provide service overall. And then on emergency management, in this first year in particular, focus on building resilience both for individuals and for the organization, and that's really where magic happens between those two pieces. But it's going to take a little bit to get that program up and off the ground. So that's my lightning round through Office of the CEO. Diane, would you like to share anything else on that?
That's great, thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
Chair? I'm sorry. Too many questions. I'll be called the question master general. The comment I have is when we're dealing with these government affairs, there are two types of activities, right? One is what you're doing very well, getting all the elected officials and the delegations come to get them aware of it, with no expectation of a return. But there's another part where you do something similar to lobby, some of the legislative agenda items. So is there some kind of a prioritization saying this is a legislative agenda that we definitely need to have, so there is a little more focus, effort, and resources? Do you do that?
Yes.
And do you have some way to say we succeeded, we didn't succeed?
So we have an adopted legislative agenda. We work and bring it forward at the same time that the county, Washington County, brings forward their legislative agenda. And it is vetted and approved by our board of directors. And that lays out what our priorities are. We make sure if we don't know all the bills that are going to come out in a particular session, but it helps provide the rubric of, okay, have our leadership identified this as a priority? Should we go after it? If there's something that's on the bubble, we bring it back to the board and ask those questions. But that becomes the metric of, okay, are we looking at emerging contaminants like PFAS and finding, the resources for more research there? Are we looking at infrastructure dollars? Are always, they're evergreen, right? There's never enough money to go around to actually address the infrastructure needs. So we have those. And then I think what you're getting at on the latter part is there a scorecard at the end of the day? How did you do? And we put together a report at the end, but it's not necessarily, there were 10 bills, 4 of them passed, and 3 of them we know are going to get reintroduced. It's a little bit more nuanced, but we will do a legislative report, both before the board, as well as coming to the CWAC. So you'll get to hear and ask some of those questions.
Yeah, so what I was really leading this up is, so do you have lobbyists and do you have any paid lobbyists and is that expense covered somewhere?
We do have a lobbyist, a government affairs professional, and actually I also register with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission just to be totally above board, and that's part of my background was as a lobbyist. So if you're spending a certain amount of time or resource advocating, that's the appropriate and legal thing to do. But we do have one in-house person that does that. She's come to CWAC before and comes before the board to present the agenda. And then we do also have a contract for services in Washington, D.C., because you need someone on the ground to really understand what's going on. So that's how we maintain that on an ongoing basis, and they're able to help advise. Your member of Congress really needs to hear from you in person. Now is the time to make that ask and to show and demonstrate that this is a really big deal for clean water services.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next up, Regional Utility Services, Joe, Karen, and Dan.
Joe comes with a big binder.
Just in case.
Just in,
Saving the best for last.
saving I agree. You have 5 seconds.
Thank you. Oop, is this on? Yes, it is. Thank you, everyone, hanging in there as we get into the afternoon. My name is Joe Gall. I'm the Chief Utility Relations Officer, and I'm here with my two major managers to talk a little bit about Regional Utility Services Department. I'll let Karen.
I'm Karen DeBaker, the Communications and Community Engagement Division Manager.
Good afternoon. I'm Damon Reishi. I am the Division Manager for our Planning and Development Services program.
So as we've been saying, if you're following along on the budget, we're on pages 207 to 219, and then in our roadmap, pages 105 through 130. So there are three sections of RUSD, the Communications and Community Engagement Team, which is 11 FTE. That's led by Karen DeBaker. Karen, if you don't know, has been with the district nearly 25 years now. So very seasoned, knows a lot of the history of CWS, has seen it all, so to speak. And she leads this team. And you can imagine, I'm not going to touch on all these, but you can imagine with the name, they do communications and community engagement. But some of the things that maybe you're not aware of that I want to just highlight, our Public Information Officer, Julie Cortez, is in this group. She's obviously been very busy lately working with the media in the current situation. Our educational folks, we do a lot of adult and student education. And a lot of that takes place at Fernhill, but a lot of it also takes place with schools. That's an important part of this team. Volunteer coordination is also part of that. We work when we're doing projects. Someone had mentioned earlier, Rick, about the Brookman project in Sherwood, which is a major project on the horizon. We work very closely with the city of Sherwood to do public engagement together to communicate to the community in terms of that project and the impacts. That's an example. And then there's a bullet up there that says creative services. That's a range of type of programs. That's our website, our social media channels, which hopefully you follow, Instagram and Facebook and other things. That's part of the team to get our messaging and information out in different ways. This whole presentation is a team of folks, but the creative services team coordinates all the work that goes into these type of presentations. Planning and Development Services, which is led by Damon Reishi. Damon is also a long-term CWS employee, has been here 20 years. So I have the benefit of two very well-seasoned and experienced managers in my team. About 30 FTE. This group really, as I always envision it, we have some planners, and those planners work more with our city partners in the county on long-range planning. So a lot of those expansion areas. I'll use Sherwood as an example. The UGB expansion just happened. Now Sherwood's going to enter the next phase to plan that Sherwood West expansion, we're right there with them planning for our infrastructure. So we can get to the point, as Commissioner Snyder said, Director Snyder said, we want to be there when needed in terms of our infrastructure. So that planning group works very, very closely, if not weekly, almost daily with our city staff in terms of planning for those areas. Then there's the development, the current types of development. As current development is happening, they have to get permits and other things through city and county, but also through us. And that's a big part of the planning and development team. And then finally, inspection. We have inspectors out in the field doing erosion and sedimentation control, making sure that there are no negative impacts from construction that are ongoing in terms of our service area. And then the FTEs and admin are basically the three of us. We've touched on this a little bit a number of times, so I won't spend too much time, but our personnel services increased primarily because of the shift in the budget. So CCE, Communications and Community Engagement, have been reporting to me for over a year and a half since Mark Jockers retired. We are now shifting the budget to formally put that budget within the department, but they've been operating with me as the director for over 18 months now. But those positions are now shifted. Materials and services, also a lot of those shifts came. Travel and training, we have inspectors, for example, that have certifications that need to happen. So that's part of the training for our folks. I think the one aspect that I'd like to highlight for our training is we're all local and regional. We are not planning any national travel and training for my team next year. There were some requests, but as we tightened up our budget, we decided to focus on local and regional training. And when I say regional, it's really Oregon and Washington State in terms of our training dollars. Meals and refreshments are, as Kathy said, a couple retreats for both of these groups. I think the one unique aspect, we have a tradition with our co-implementers. Once a year in the summer when we have a meeting, we have a summer barbecue basically to thank them for their partnership throughout the year. And that's included in that $1,100 for the budget. A couple things I wanted to highlight on the achievement side. We've been really focused on helping our city partners develop middle housing and infill. Tigard really comes, they're a leader in the region in terms of actually getting middle housing built. We've had to work very closely to make sure we can facilitate that and don't have any issues. And then also with the legislature, we've been very engaged with Tracy Rainey as bills come up in terms of proposals, in terms of changes, especially in the housing areas, what those proposed legislative changes, how they would impact us, good or bad. So we're kind of Tracy's go-to in terms of development-related bills, and we work very closely with her. And we'll continue until the end of the session come June. We've done a stakeholder survey, which we have not had a chance yet to report to the board. We want to bring that to the board soon. We'll bring that to CWEC. We do that every 2 or 3 years, but we saw a very nice positive uptick in a lot of those numbers. One of the ones that I'm really very proud of my team is that there's been a significant increase in how our partners view us as being very collaborative. And you can see the numbers in 2021, we were at 76%, and then there's a pretty good jump to 88%. And those partners, those survey folks that we talk to are mayors, city managers, staff, and also some of our environmental groups that we partner with. We are very active working on IGAs, or operating IGAs, which I think you've heard about. Cornelius, we just wrapped up this week. The board approved it, and the city council. Beaverton, we hope to have on the board agenda in June, and we have a number of IGAs to get through in the next 12 to 18 months. That's a heavy lift for our group, but we're ready to tackle that. And
if I might, on that score, I apologize once again for not pulling that off the consent agenda, because these are partner agreements, contracts that are multi-year, and hopefully after the expiration period, you could just keep updating them and it'll be seamless. But this is one of the reasons why we why you were brought into the agency in this role, so thank you.
Yes, Chair. And for the board, you'll see those always in the future, including the one in June with Beaverton, as an action item rather than being on consent. This is a look at the numbers that you've seen with all the departments. Again, the big increases are really from the shifts, and you can see the additions to RUSD, myself and CCE coming over from the Office of the CEO. We are shifting 3 FTE positions out of RUSD with this budget. Those are GIS positions as we're centralizing GIS, and you'll hear later from Digital Solutions about that. So some adds and some subtractions. We are now a department of 44 FTE. Hand it off to Karen.
Thank you very much. So I'd first like to say unofficially that Damon and I were 16 when we started at Clean Water Services. It's not true. Yes, you're 15. There you go. So communications and community engagement, we're kind of 2 teams in one, and we're honored to be joining RUSD, Regional Utility Services Department, especially to have an officer who has relations in their name. So it seems very fitting that we would be part of this group. So one of the things, internal alignment and collaboration, I mean, they are vital for any relationship building. And collaboration's a big word. It's very important in our community. It's very important for Clean Water Services right now, and it's very important for all of us in this room. So one of the things that we do in this group is, while everyone in the organizations collaborate, communication, they build those relationships, we try to help lead the strategy for that. And facilitating those cross-departmental and interjurisdictional collaboration starts with managing stakeholder relationships. We're looking into building a stakeholder relationship framework. So it's an organization-wide roadmap. So we're aligning our values, our mission, our needs, and our expectations with that of the community to make sure we're collaboratively working internally to manage those external relationships. Performance excellence, as you know, we're on a performance excellence journey. There's the voice of the customer, which basically is what we're trying to do is connect the dots between all of those listening systems that we have in the organization. And that's through phone calls, people writing in, it's for field operations, receiving tickets. How are we all coordinating responses? How are we listening? And how are we effectively delivering services as a united organization? Some of the other things that we're doing, updating city and county operating IGAs, stormwater program into implementation and reporting. As you know, we do that with our co-implementers. Integrating utility infrastructure, stormwater, basin planning, obviously regional projects, and then supporting development review processes at the county and at the cities. So one of the things we talk about is we seek first to understand before being understood. And we do that by listening. And we talked about research, we talked about survey work. People survey work is just as important. So right now we're in the middle, we just kind of finished it, but we'll be bringing it to the board, is a community engagement audit. And what that is looking at all of our systems, going into the communities, working with Central Culturel to figure out what folks want. So when we have a project and need to connect with the community, we're not just popping in and saying, hey, come to a public meeting. We're actually working with them on their systems and how they want to engage with us and what their needs are. Right now, we're going to be doing focus groups. We have 3 coming up in the next couple months to update our ratepayer values. These are values that customers have told us that they hold for an organization like ours. So we'll be updating those. And then those values we benchmark against, and we do a biannual customer awareness and satisfaction survey every 2 years. We've been doing it since 1988. So we'll have those updated values. They were last updated in 2014. So, after we listen and do all of that, and we also had our stakeholder insights survey that Joe mentioned, which we'll be bringing to the board, we want to make sure that we're aligning with the frameworks and the governance that's already out there. So we have our permit, natural hazard mitigation plan, our roadmaps. A big part of our education program is aligning with the Oregon Environmental Literacy Plan, Next Generation Science Standards. We talked about performance excellence. One big thing with performance excellence is that our CWS leadership system has stakeholder requirements and understanding at its core, and that is key for us, for the organization, and for our group. And then finally, but not least, the American with Disabilities Act Title II guidelines. In April 2027, our website, any digital communication tool has to be updated to make sure that any PDF or any photo is tagged appropriately for screen readers and those with visual impairments. This is going to take time, so we'll be looking at a website update in the interim this year. So for example, as you look at this PowerPoint slide, well, it's here on screen. If we take this and put it as a PDF on our website, we have to write woman holding photo, pointing, student, raising hand, and then that headline would say headline. If there is a graphic in there, we'd have to say graphic with a river running through. So that's something we'll really need to spend a lot more time on. And then finally, after we do the listening, we align, then we do the strategy. And one of the things we say about strategy is that we want to make sure that the organization is singing from the same song sheet. So what we say in words needs to be the same thing that folks who are on the ground are saying and connecting with the community. And that's our community engagement team, meeting with, like I said, projects in the field, neighborhoods, associations, CPOs. Damon's meeting with the Home Builders Association. We have our field ops crews who are connecting with staff doing projects, our environmental services team who's meeting with Intel. We need to make sure that we all have the same messages and we're supporting the credibility and trust for clean water services. So again, all of that needs to happen with customized outreach. We always say, everyone is not an audience. It has to be targeted audience with targeted messages through the channels that they want to receive those messages with. So it's a huge effort, but it's one that we enjoy. That's why I like to say we are community engagement engineers, just like a regular engineer. So it takes work. But again, we don't do it alone. We do it with this organization. And we also coordinate with utility partners who have similar jobs as us. So,
Can I ask you a question?
please.
And first of all, I just want to say you're a great speaker. Not that the rest of the previous speakers weren't great, but you really live up to your job title in the department you manage.
Thank you.
Especially the description you gave about the picture and how you described. I was really following, you know. The question I have for you is, in your department, does public records requests fall under your department?
They do not, but we work really closely with the legal team to help communicate about those. So.
Thank you. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about our Planning and Development Services program. And at first, it might seem like Planning and Development Services seems a bit odd paired with our communications and community engagement group and utility relations. But really, Planning and Development Services is about our customers, and we have a very customer-focused mindset. Our customers are our co-implementing cities and our other cities and the county that we need to work with. It's also our development community, industry, and commercial interests. So one of the main focuses for our group is really about coordinating internally around the regional services that we provide. So we work a lot with our capital groups and natural systems groups in order to make sure that those regional services are in alignment with the community plans that our city partners and the county are putting together. We also coordinate with development interests and industrial interests to make sure that, again, those services are available just in time in order to make sure that investments aren't missed or new housing can occur in a timely basis. Aside from our personnel services, really the biggest budget item that we have is our professional services. About $490,000 budget in this proposed budget. A portion of that this year is geared towards those community plans and specifically towards incorporating stormwater management into that community level planning. We're already working with King City on Kingston Terrace, but we're anticipating this next year to begin working with Sherwood on the West Sherwood expansion, Beaverton on their downtown urban renewal area, and also the city of Tualatin on their Nyberg stormwater planning. We also pay a lot of attention, as Joe mentioned, to what's happening in the legislature, and housing production has been a big topic this year. So we have taken that to heart, middle housing, infill housing. We've already made adjustments to our processes to make those types of reviews more efficient. We've also heard a lot of discussion this year about timeframes for reviews. And that's both land use reviews as well as technical engineering reviews. And for a lot of years, we've been very proud of how quickly we turn around our reviews. So the first bullet on here, I just wanted to highlight one of our more challenging review types. It's called site development, and it's for large industrial developments, commercial developments, and subdivision developments. Review timelines aren't as simple as simply turning in an application, a certain number of days pass, and you get approval. There's a lot of back and forth with technical engineering reviews. And just as an example, for this year to date, we're averaging around 15 business days for our initial review, and then our resubmittal reviews, the second, third time that we see plans, we're averaging about 11 business days. Most projects take, on average, 3 reviews. Some are a little quicker, some take a few more. More complex, the more number of reviews. What we found for this year is that we're averaging around 100 business days from initial submittal to approved plans. So if you add all that up, what you'll see is that a little over a third of that time, the plan review staff and the permitting staff actually have those plans and are reviewing them. The other close to 2/3 of the time, it's the the developer's engineer that has those plans making adjustments in order to meet standards. I also wanted to touch quick on the chart that's to the right. I thought this was interesting. I'd asked this question of my staff as we hear about housing production. And the blue line, well, each set of blue and orange is a year, with the bars on the right being current fiscal year to date. The blue bar shows really how many approved lots we have in our system at that time. This is a snapshot. And then the orange bar shows how many connection permits we've issued in that year. And you'll notice that there's a pretty big difference. There's a lot of lots that could come in and pull a connection permit. Even today, there's a pretty big difference. That gap is getting smaller as time goes by, but really it doesn't appear that our review cycle is a limitation on housing production. Just to touch on questions from this morning, you can see in this graph that there's roughly 500 connection permits that we had issued so far this year. That's really through the end of March. And you'll notice that that's pretty consistent with previous years. That has a little bit of a relation to SDCs. Certainly, that's how our system development charges come in. However, not every connection permit is equal in terms of the amount of system development charge that is received. So a single-family residence, it's pretty consistent. But if you start thinking about a commercial site that might have a lot more going into it, it's use-based, or an industrial site that's use-based, there's maybe a much higher charge. So our charges fluctuate. At the break, we got a little bit of information, and this year we're at 39, our SDC rate is up 39% over last year. And I think on page 71 of the budget, you can see a chart called System Development Charges, and you can see that over time. It ends with fiscal year 2024. However, you can imagine that for fiscal year 25, that's at this point 39% greater than 2024.
Questions?
I think I lost my marker on my book, but I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, I recall that the budget for Karen's department there was a big drop. Am I right?
We shored up some things. So we have a very dedicated and educated staff. We're trying to bring more stuff inside. We did trim our travel budget. We're fortunate, I guess you could say. We're able to take a lot of our trainings online. But we realize there are other positions that need certification, but that probably was a drop. We did cut some of our research that we were going to do, our people research, just to kind of shore that up a little bit. So.
I don't know, I'll probably find my marker later, but it was under the communications and community engagement, and the question on my mind was, are we reducing the kind of community outreach or engagement kind of activities to get that kind of a reduction? If my wires are crossed, you can ignore the question.
If I'm understanding your question, one of the big things, and actually I think that was what the chair referred to, is we have community engagement contracts. We work really closely with partners. So that is one investment, or where we would leverage that outreach and community engagement. There are different ways that we're looking at reaching out to the community, and like I said, a lot of the stuff we're doing with partners, they're a big, big help. That's why we're fortunate that our sponsorship budget is what it is. It helps us maintain those relationships and, maintain that interest in collaboration, I guess you could say. So does that answer your question?
Well, if I find what I was looking for, I was going back and forth, but I couldn't find it. I'll bring it for the next meeting. Maybe you can help me answer that.
And to your answer, are we doing less? No. We will continue to do the community engagement and communications, and we probably will be doing more. We just need to be more creative and use the resources.
I'll be happy if I'm wrong, but the other question I had for you was, you spoke about the focus groups. So how do you form these focus groups? Do you pick them, draft them, identify them, or random? Do you want to come?
Well, I don't do that, but the firm, we're working with DHM Research, and they will do that for us. So they do a random sample based on voter registrations. And what we're doing are 3 of them, and they're strategically located throughout the region, our service area. So we'll be having one in the Tiger-Tualatin area, one in the Beaverton area, and then one Cornelius Forest Grove area, to make sure that we're hitting 3 different groups. So they do that work for us and do the call for people and stuff like that. And then they run the focus groups. So
as long as they're truly representative of the...
And that's why they're doing that, so they can get a truly representative sample. So
Yeah, I like the fact that you don't get involved, you let them do that. That's a big.
we'll be very interested to see what those folks say this time round. So those will be happening in May and in in June. And that, I will come to the board, and I would love to continue, and CWAC, and continue to share that with all of you, because it's important. So, because that's what we use to benchmark our performance against.
Wonderful, thank you.
DHM may not mean anything to you specifically, but they're a organization that does this kind of research reliably for public entities pretty commonly, with good scientific methods, I would say.
I've been lucky to be part of them, so I don't know about this.
Take your surveys when people call. They're very important. Please.
Okay, yeah. My question is for Damon. You mentioned something like, was it almost $500,000 for professional services?
Right.
Can you elaborate a bit on that? I mean, what kind of skills are you hiring for? And not sure exactly how to ask this, but there's a tension between accommodating versus encouraging development, and about whether your consultants also work for developers. Can you just give me some more background on that?
Sure, and just right up front, I'll say some of the consultants that we hired do work for developers. They also work for cities. So that first piece I mentioned related to community planning. Some of those consultants are planning firms. Some of those consultants are engineering firms to help figure out how to incorporate the stormwater subbasin planning into those community plans. So that's one category. Another category is really hiring on-call technical services to help with engineering plan review and environmental plan review. And ideally, we don't use that all the time. That's to manage the peaks and submittals. We're, especially on the engineering side, been pushing that lately. Have more room on the environmental review side. Another category that we're planning for this year is to get technical services to look at our code compliance, not code compliance, our standards, and whether they comply with our current permit, because any adjustments that we need to make related to stormwater in particular need to be done by November of 2026. So we've put money in the budget to evaluate whether or not any adjustments are necessary.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can we have a brief bio break if we're,
Yes, let's do that.
are we scheduled to have a break?
At 3 o'clock, well, on the original
Oh, at
schedule,
3 o'clock. Okay, I can make it.
Okay, we'll wait until,
Yeah, that's fine.
Go through one more
yeah,
set.
one more set. Next up is legal and compliance, Brad Anderson.
Let's do it, Jack.
Good afternoon, Budget Committee. My name is Brad Anderson. I'm a Senior Assistant Legal Counsel here at Clean Water Services. I've been in this role for about 6 months or so, and I'm pinch hitting for our General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer. I'm going to try to make up some time here, so because I think everybody needs a break. So.
Not that easy, Mr. Brad. Not that easy.
I'm
Not that
expecting
easy.
a question. I'll get ready for it. So what you'll see in our budget is now we are composed of basically 3 teams now. There's the traditional legal services side of things. We also now have an internal compliance and cybersecurity team, which dovetails real well with the legal piece. Cybersecurity helps us, they catch problems before they happen, so we don't have to deal with it on the legal side. And then compliance will help us to look to see if the organization is in fact complying with its requirements and to help us improve to have better compliance. And then there's also a side piece on here, but I'll let Courtney Brown speak about it later, the RAD piece. And then we also now will have procurement under our wing, which I think it's different from how the county does it, but it does make sense because so much of what we do is procurement, and the legal piece and the procurement side, we can work together with more efficiencies. So this is our new group. Previously, it was just legal services. So you'll see huge jumps in our budget, but in reality, it's not a huge budget increase. It's just moving people from other parts of the organization into our umbrella. You'll only see an additional FTE in there, and that's for the procurement team. And what you'll see in procurement at Clean Water Services is a bit different from what you'll see at the county in this respect. They're more full service than what you would see at the county, because at the county, and I speak of this because I worked for the county for many years and worked with procurement, they always have contract administrators within each individual organization, and it's much more hands-on by our procurement team at Clean Water Services, and they do a lot more of the work on the day-to-day procurement pieces. Like I said, there is an ask for an additional FTE within procurement. In my short time here at Clean Water Services, I've noticed that there is just a lot going on in procurement, and because there's a lot of construction type of work, that's a lot more work to do bids and proposals than what you would see with a peaceful organization that's doing a lot more professional types of services. So there's a lot of work to go on in there, and I'm glad that we heard about tariffs, because that is something that we're really thinking about in procurement and how we address tariffs, because we want to try to catch it at the front end in the procurement process instead of just getting additional billing because of tariffs at the back end. So we want to control it through the contract.
So is procurement under compliance, or is it legal because it needs legal lens?
I can't tell you exactly how it was moved over, but there is a logical reason for it to sit in legal, because we just work hand in glove together.
There's also a legal lens, because Clean Water Services has all of this technology that comes from the original equipment manufacturer. So unlike other operations, we have a lot of sole sources. So we want to make sure the sole sources meet the procurement laws, and so the team actually helps the operating groups. So there's a lot more compliance pieces within our procurement.
You mentioned the tariff piece of it. I asked that question because I was curious about how do you call out the tariffs part without the finance lens as well. So that caught my attention when you mentioned tariffs with the procurement, because how do you tease out and how do you track the escalations?
Right, and what we try to do on the procurement side at the front end is try to, what I'm always asking for is how much are we paying, so that finance doesn't get caught with a surprise at the end. What we're seeing with our vendors, and we're getting equipment from all over the world, is they want to have a provision in there that's like, this is our cost plus whatever tariffs you're going to see later on. And we're trying to contain that, because that's a challenge on a cost containment piece. One other thing you'll see in materials and services increase, there's a centralized legal services. What has happened was, over time, there was individual departments had pieces of outside counsel within their budgets, and we're all consolidating it together into our group, which makes a whole lot more sense from a administrative perspective as well as a transparency perspective, that it's not all over the place. You'll see that we do have travel and training. Lawyers have minimum legal education requirements, and our procurement folks have those requirements as well as cybersecurity. Oops. So this is a slide you see for all departments, and it just breaks out the total costs. So on the compliance piece, we're just developing that piece right now. We have an individual, Bruce Corden, who's been a long time, 30-plus year employee of Clean Water Services, so he knows a little bit about everything, or a lot about everything, frankly. And so he's going to lead the compliance piece on the the organization, and looking at how they're doing and how to build in compliance amongst the entire organization. And then, like I said, cybersecurity is a piece that our department will have now. And cybersecurity is really important. We had one of our partner agencies had a big cybersecurity event that did not spread to our organization because of our cybersecurity team and the training that they do to all our employees. Because as you probably know, in this world, there's a lot of phishing out there to try to get into your systems. And that's, our cybersecurity team is working at that so that it doesn't even enter our system, so that we don't make bad choices. They're also doing an audit of or had an outside auditor look at cybersecurity within the organization. So we'll see more on that soon.
And Bruce Corden is pretty unique. He's a lawyer by education, and he is also a Lean Six Sigma black belt. So he has both the legal and the black belt combined together.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing, actually. And so he can go through the rules, he can go through standards, and we're pretty lucky here.
I've already spoken on this slide. So one of the things our office is doing right now too is working on transparency and accountability for the organization. We are currently training employees along with Kathy Leader on expenditure training for all of our employees. We're working on getting an outside auditor to help us with travel and meal expenditures. It's going to be a forensic look into expenditures and giving the board a report on that. And as you can see on the slide, overseeing comprehensive review of executive management, team expenditures, and reviewing travel and meal policies. Those are all in the works right now. And that's legal services. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank
Turn
you.
it over to, oh, yes, sir.
Oh, no, just thank you for your time.
Okay, and I will share with you, the next person who's speaking is actually part of our team, Courtney Brown, but she is filling in as the interim director of the RAD team. So she is actually part of our team and will eventually, as a lawyer, and will come over to our team this year, hopefully soon, as we're busy. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Regulatory Affairs. Courtney, if you could take your 15 minutes and wrap up by 3:05? No, no.
Break now? Or
No, take your 15 minutes and we'll take a break at 3:05. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Courtney Brown, Acting Director of the Regulatory Affairs Department, affectionately known as RAD. Last year, RAD's longtime director, Bob Baumgartner, was here presenting to you all, and I I believe you're aware that he retired in November. I'm happy to report that the core team here at RAD has very ably taken the reins, the leadership reins from Bob, and in the 7 months since he's been gone, they've continued RAD's work with the same commitment to compliance, excellence, detail, and professionalism that Bob modeled for so many years. I've been the acting director for 2 months now, and they're really an impressive team. 3 of them are sitting here today. I asked them to be here in the audience in case I got some complicated, in-depth questions that I couldn't answer, and you'll get to hear from them directly if that happens.
Courtney, so I just follow your transition. You're the interim director.
Yes.
Acting director right now, and then you're going to go to legal and compliance?
Yes, we're in the process
when
of
they hire this position. Okay.
the permanent RAD
All right.
director, which is underway. So, yeah, I'll go back to.
Is that your way of saying it won't be you? Is that?
No, I don't believe it'll be me. I have not applied for the job. I mean,
full transparency.
So, RAD's primary focus is on ensuring compliance with our permits. This is I think, a different kind of compliance than the compliance that Brad just talked to you about. We're focused on compliance with the DEQ issued permits as well as state and federal regulations. You all well know that the Tualatin River is small and very sensitive, and because of that, we have a permit that has really strict requirements. And to ensure that we're compliant with those very strict requirements, we have our lab. We have the lab in-house in RAD. As Diane likes to point out, we used to do analyses. We've gone from doing analyses in parts per million to parts per billion and even parts per trillion. And so the Clean Water Services Lab is really the backbone of this analytical work that's so important to all of the programs within Clean Water Services. The lab manager, Karen Chichetu, is here. She oversees a staff of 23 FTE, and these are the people who are responsible for providing sampling and analysis expertise throughout the district and even to our co-implementers. Next, we have compliance services. If the lab is sort of the backbone of RAD, I think compliance services is the heart. The slide says that there's 8 FTE in compliance services, but there's really 6 currently, 2 of which, Jamie and Julia, are here today. They are a small but truly mighty group responsible for district-wide compliance with all of these permits and the regulations. The district's quality assurance and quality control program is housed in compliance services. QA/QC is a requirement of our NIPD's permit, and we maintain a robust QA/QC program that works closely with our lab to ensure that our analytical data has a high level of integrity. And because of this robust QA/QC program, DEQ trusts our results. So I think of environmental services as maybe like a vascular system or the muscles. It's the biggest of the 3. There's well, except for the lab, but there's 11 FTE. They're a young and energetic bunch. They act as regulators for the district. They issue permits regulating non-domestic waste from industrial sources, and these folks are out in the field performing inspections, responding to spills and upsets, providing technical assistance, and when necessary, handling enforcement actions. So some of the budget drivers in RAD are in personnel services. We had 5 mid-year redesignations of FTE. These were promotions, My position was redesignated and then transferred to legal. And then let's see, in the materials and services, that decreased 6%. This is due to moving our contract for outside legal services over to the legal department. Our proposed travel and training budget is 2.3%, 57,000. This is largely for staff to attend conferences, which are part of their professional development plans. You know, as I mentioned, especially in the environmental services section, there's a lot of new and, you know, youngish employees in that section, and training and education is, you know, essential to their development. And, you know, staff really appreciate these opportunities to stay current on issues and, you know, learn about new emerging issues, technical advancements, their networking opportunities. And, you know, they're a valuable way to invest in the staff. So RAD's budget has a 0% change from the last fiscal year. And this is especially noteworthy when you consider that, you know, we have a 3% annual increase in the permit fees that we pay to DEQ, and permit fees run about $500,000 every year. I think in this fiscal year, they are $468,000 to be exact. Okay, so looking a little more in depth at the lab, by having our own lab in-house, Clean Water Services is able to perform hundreds of thousands of analyses that would otherwise have to be literally shipped out or FedExed to other labs, some of which are in California or Washington or in other places. So we save a lot of money by having the in-house lab. And in addition, by having our own lab, we can ensure the high level of quality assurance and control and the integrity of our data, something we can't do when we ship it out. As you can see from this slide, the lab provides a lot of services to the district. You've heard about a lot of them today, the eDNA work, research that research and innovation does. They provide sample and analysis support for some co-implementers in our stormwater program. When there's an illicit discharge or an upset, you know, the lab helps the inspectors out in the field diagnose what got into the system. The lab also is working on developing methods of analysis for emerging pollutants. Last year they came up with a PFAS method that's currently in use, and this year they're working on 6-ppd quinone, which is a toxic substance in tires that's prevalent in the environment. These are some of the things the environmental services section is working on. A lot of it has to do with making the permitting process more consistent, transparent, and efficient. They're developing permit templates and fact sheets to help streamline the regulatory process and their interactions with the regulated community. The same is happening in the enforcement program. They're developing processes to ensure that the response to violation is consistent and appropriate. And you'll see under the goals that environmental services will be preparing an RFP to get new software to help store and manage data collected from industrial dischargers. We're also expanding the reach of the program to capture some commercial and industrial sources of pollutants, such as fats and oil and grease. And the team is working on preparing PFAS management plans for industrial sources. At this point, these plans are a voluntary compliance tool, but this effort is to get ahead of what we anticipate will be state and federal requirements regarding PFAS. As I mentioned, environmental services folks are out in the field performing inspections. And in the last year, they performed 283 inspections, 89 industrial stormwater related, 96 pre-treatment inspections. These are of industrial sources that discharge chemicals to the system, 85 fog inspection, fats, oil, and grease, and 13 dental office inspections to try to work on mercury minimization. Okay, so as I mentioned, the mission of compliance services is to oversee district-wide implementation and compliance with the district's permits. This is the massive and complex NIPD's permit. This permit is 157 pages long, and it comes with I think it's 250-page fact sheet that helps explain the conditions that are in this permit. It includes the MS4, the municipal separate storm sewer permit, and then we also have 2 air discharge permits that are issued to the water resource recovery facilities. So the compliance service team has its work cut out for them. Ensuring compliance with all of these complicated permits requires careful and constant coordination with the district's other programs and the water resource recovery facilities. The compliance services team has to understand, has to have a good working knowledge of the facilities and their treatment processes, but also has to have a mastery of all of the conditions of these permits and how they're applied and how they're interpreted and all of the nuances. And so the compliance services team almost acts as consultants to the water resource recovery facilities and other district programs, helping them problem solve and provide advice on what actions they can take to maintain permit compliant operations. So you heard CJ talk about the natural treatment system. Because it's a natural treatment system, the nutria, the total suspended solids, there's a lot of back and forth that happens between CJ's team and compliance services to help them problem solve and brainstorm solutions, and what would the permit allow, how could we change the permit to allow something different. This is some of the sort of technical assistance that the compliance services team helps provide. So the day-to-day work of compliance services is ensuring that all of the permit required monitoring gets done, but also that the data from that monitoring is compiled and analyzed and reported to DEQ. So day to day, this team is responsible for a lot of reporting. There's monthly reports, quarterly reports, annual reports, reports that are required once during a permit term, that's once every 5 years. And then if there's a storm sewer overflow or an illicit discharge, they're also responsible for doing those reports, which are time sensitive and usually you have to get the information and get it to DEQ within a certain amount of time, or it will be late, which would be a violation of the permit. I'm happy to report that they have a 100% compliance record. They've not missed a deadline, and they're very good at getting all these reports in. Compliance Services also maintains 78 ongoing reasonable potential analyses studies. These are they're constantly watching the data to see if we are at risk for exceeding water quality standards. This is in one way that Compliance Services helps the district manage future regulatory risk. If we were to exceed a water quality standard, that would become a limit in our permit that we'd have to monitor for, treat for, and it can be an expensive and arduous addition to our regulatory burden. So the other big focus of compliance services is on the future regulatory state. As Diane mentioned, we're halfway through the current 5-year permit term, and compliance services is already deep into preparations for the next permit renewal. That application is due June 3rd, 2027, and so they have a comprehensive plan that works backwards from that due date that includes, every step of the planning process, but also every element from all sectors of the district's work that will go into our permit application. It's a massive effort of coordination and communication, and the team has prepared this tool to help communicate widely to the district and to external stakeholders exactly what the plan is. And so when June 3rd comes, we're not going to be scrambling last minute, and we'll have all of the necessary parts of the application together. They're also planning beyond the next permit. The compliance services is involved in the long-term regulatory compliance strategy effort. You've heard a little bit about this today, but this is the strategy that looks at not only challenges within the districts in the next 2-3 permit terms, but also things like climate change, urban development, and population growth. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions? I talked really fast to try to make up some time.
One of the things that I try to do when I'm thinking through this is making sure I understand the operations and like who's doing what, et cetera. And I understand the lab part of this like really well, but I can't even think in my mind what kind of background people in the environmental services or compliance services as described here, like what kinds of backgrounds do they have? Are they are the compliance people like microbiologists and chemistry people, or like did some of them come out of the lab, or do people from there go into who are these people? Like what kind of background do they have?
Well, I should let them speak.
I don't even have a frame of reference to think about.
When I first started 2 months ago as the acting director.
You had the same question?
Well, yes, and one of the first things I did was, start at the beginning. Like, do you have any degrees? Like, what did you study? Yeah. Where did you come from? And there's chemists, there's engineers, there's people who came up through the lab.
Okay.
There's, I think, Julia used to work at DEQ. Did I miss anything? They're really an impressive bunch who have a wide array of skills and expertise, and environmental services were also hired from the industries that they now regulate.
Okay.
Consultants, we have folks who were in private consulting.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. I am a fish out of water being a lawyer and, in this group.
No pun intended.
Yes.
And Courtney came to us from DEQ.
Yeah.
You nude out of the mud.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Oh. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 3:20.
So let's go over and talk to Elizabeth, okay? I've been texting with her. Figure out what part. Elizabeth, do you want to? Kathy, did you want to? So my question to Elizabeth was, where is a natural place that we could move things to our next meeting? Or is that bad?
That's totally fine, because we're leaving the meeting open and announcing the next date, and then we would just indicate that we have these additional departments that we'll present, and then the public, and we can put on the phone taken.
From Brad too, and then,
Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so when they're coming back at 3:20, is that?
Right.
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay.
And then we go to public comment.
Sorry, missed your call.
Do you think, how long do you think yours is going?
I can make it 2 minutes, I mean.
No catch.
Oh, I say just two.
Took it out.
Stop after.
I think it.
Okay, we'll reconvene. We will make an adjustment to our agenda. Kathy will conclude with finance and accounting, and then we'll defer the following items to the meeting on May 23rd. So after Kathy, we'll open the room to public comment. Kathy?
Thank you, Chair Song. So Kathy Leader, I'm Chief Financial Officer and oversee the Finance and Accounting Department. We are just one department, but we do a diversity of work within our group. We have strategic financial planning, we have financial accounting and reporting, budget planning, development administration, utility billing and collections, treasury, debt management, and cost of service analysis, forecastings, and rate development. So we have a diverse group of work with 19 FTE. Budget drivers for us this year. On personal services, we see an increase of $412,700 or 14%. This is, as we've discussed before, the transfer of my position back into my group. One mid-year ad that happened in fiscal year 25 for the senior accounting technician. This position helps support both accounts receivable and accounts payable, backfills in both of those as we have workflow or people on leave or on vacation. A great resource for our group. And the increase also includes the reclassification of 3 represented FTE to senior level, so promotional activity within our group. Materials and services, that increased by $445,200 or 24%. This mainly relates to our joint billing service with Swan Valley Water. As we talked earlier today, that element has gone up. We are in the middle of IGA with them, and so an estimate of what that new contract will look like for our share of the billing services with the district. Our budget includes proposed travel and training of $39,000 or 1.7% of our M&S budget. This really reflects the regulatory environment of our group. We have a lot of policies, procedures, accounting standards, regulatory compliance that we do within our group, and we have 5 new professionals in our group. There's this need for not only the certifications and licenses they hold, but also just technical and professional training for those individuals, and for keeping up to date on any of the new generally accepted accounting principles, government accounting standard principle changes, any of the regulatory budget law changes, and other compliance within the group. So the need for that training for our group. Professional meals and refreshment, $2,000 in our budget. That mainly relates to the cost of the budget committee meeting, and this year it went down significantly. Thank you. And so we won't see levels like that I think it was $1,500 in prior budgets, but now they're pretty cost effective, and then one retreat for our group.
Kathy, before we jump ahead.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the billing process.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the TVWD contract is not going to go up $445,000. I'm hoping that's correct. Because, as you know, we are getting pressure to modify our billing process with all the cities. And so this could be I guess I need to know what's the timeline of all of that if we would do that? And are we talking about a lot of money to do this? Because this is just one contract, and that's a pretty hefty number. So,
yeah. And I will say there's a little bit of additional costs related to this renewal. So yeah, our contract with TVW ends June 30. So July 1, we will be in a new IGA agreement with them. It will be done under a new cost allocation method, which I reviewed and feel is equitable. So there's that piece of just increased costs of the contract. It's a $2 million contract already. So just the increase in the 5-7% increase in that contract. But also as we work with them to stabilize the billing system, there are some additional contract service costs that we have in support of getting stabilization in that system that we have agreed to help participate in. So it's really those two pieces.
All right, kind of coming attractions. Yeah.
Are those sunk costs? And I'm asking the question in relationship to if there's sunk costs with TVWD, if we look to the future to do our own billing.
Only in that we need to bill, and we're going to be billing with them for at least a year to 2 years, at the
Whatever
minimum.
the decision is.
Yeah, as we make a decision, as we find a new software, implement it, run dual systems, we have to continue to bill, and we need those additional contract services that they offer to keep stable and keep billing going.
Thank you.
As you see, the 19 FTE, 18% increase. We just talked about the cost reflected in personal service and material services. And initiatives in this next year. The key one we've all been talking about, the enhanced reporting and auditing. Our group is going to be working very closely with compliance, doing internal review of expenditures, reporting out to the board and compliance, and then also managing those policies and amending them as needed throughout the year. We're also looking to partner with digital solutions as we look at a couple different investments in technology and our needs. One of them is potentially the billing system, also our CIP software that we utilize for CIP planning, and the ERP system we're all talking about that's out there in the future. Our group, this past year, the cost of service study was moved over into our group, and so we will be working on that, the final updates to that cost of service study and the formulation of those utility billing rates with the hope of implementing those in this next fiscal year, 27. And also, as we get done with the West Basin Master Plan, we get those two plans together, we're going to be working with with the engineering capital planning on the development of new system development charges for the district. So there's been much needed, so.
Can I just go back to procurement and the relationship between procurement and the whole finance department, which handles budget, accounting more? Excuse me. So procurement is, I understand it, is really focused on the acquisition of the right kind of technology, right kind of equipment, contracts for purchases go through, but then your group has to pay all the bills.
Yes.
So all the dollars and cents go through your group, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
With that, any other questions?
I guess I have a quick one. It kind of goes back from this morning. The overall budget is over $750 million. Do you know how that compares to, say, like 2021 when you didn't have any type of rate hike? I'm just trying to put the increase in the budget into some context, like what it was 5 years ago. And I'm thinking, like, when you talk about 5 years ahead, it's probably going to be over $1 billion. And I didn't know if you had that number off the top of your head.
I don't, but I can definitely compile a history for you for the next meeting.
It'd be interesting, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we can do that.
We'll now open it up to public comment. Clerk Moss, if you could lead us through public comment.
Certainly, Chair Song. Is there any member of the auditorium that wishes to provide a comment to the CWS Budget Committee for up to 5 minutes a person? Just raise your hand and start coming forward. Miss, please step up and just give us your name when you get there.
Like attending a public local government hearing. I am kind of speaking on behalf of myself, but also kind of friends and neighbors, because most people my age can't take a full day off on a Friday to come into an in-person meeting or even chime in over Zoom. I have felt the impact lately, or the last 4 years, of the rate raises. I'm a full-time student and a part-time worker, so I'm sure a lot of you in your kind of college years can understand how difficult that is. I do really appreciate the work done by specifically the engineers, utility workers. I recognize that like the work that's done here is incredibly important to our local ecosystem and to kind of maintaining our utility services. I am concerned about the disparity between the kind of executive branch and utility workers, specifically the people who are really doing the labor that helps people like me and our environment. I'm also concerned about the seeming lack of actual transparency. I'm confused about why, when new audits have been brought up, our elected audits or elected auditor is not being considered. That those are the people that we chose to do that job, and I believe they deserve access to information about the money that we are, in a way, forced to pay. I recommend, in order to regain some of the trust that's been lost from the people of Washington County, that access is given to our elected county auditor. As to me, it's been made clear from past negligence towards the financial abuse that Clean Water Services executive team, that the Clean Water Services executive team does not seem to prioritize the fair payment of their lowest paid workers or the responsible use of ratepayer dollars. I also have a couple questions because I don't want it all to be comments. One is directed at the current Board of Commissioners. Just because I've been doing kind of my own research to the best of my ability, have you ever voted against a budget increase in the time that the board has been involved with Clean Water Services? Just entirely voted against it on the grounds of it not being beneficial to the people of Washington County. And then to Clean Water Services, I ask, would you be able to give clarification for the reason that even in addition to your own auditors, you choose not to give access to our elected auditor? I hope all of that made sense. I know that this is still kind of new to me, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
And report out at the next budget meeting, which is on May 23rd.
Is there anything I can do, I mean, other than raise awareness and vote differently, that would be able to make sure that does in fact happen, that feedback is given?
I'm telling you that we will take those questions and record them and put them into our question list, so and that is publicly available.
Okay.
And the answers will be posted there.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did she get a copy of this, the Q&A?
Oh, but her questions are new then.
Is this something that we can share with her?
Yes, all of the documents that were the 3 volumes, the Q&A hard copy that we're given today, the slides, the supplemental documents, all of those are on the CWS website on the budget page. So.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, I was going to offer this because there's an extra copy on the table, and it's got some of the poking questions on the budget, and this might help you understand how the budget process works.
Claire, you got your homework cut out now.
Yeah.
Clerk Moss, any further question or further public comment?
Did not see anyone else in the auditorium. Would any member on Zoom like to provide public comment for up to 5 minutes? Give you just a moment. We have one hand, Deanna Johnson. Deanna, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. My name is Deanna Johnson. I've had an opportunity to provide public testimony at previous meetings, so thank you. I was also excited to see early in the presentation that CWS is developing a long-term, considering developing a long-term ratepayer assistance program. So hopefully it potentially can be expedited. And since, you guys kind of outsourced that to Tualatin Valley in my case, I know that they've done their due diligence over the last year trying to get something in place. Perhaps their work implementing a program may potentially help you guys to expedite your decision on whether or not you will be offering one to your folks as well. I was also happy to hear that there will be more community engagement and an emphasis around conducting focus groups to gauge ratepayer values. I was a little curious about a company that you mentioned, DHM, and I think it was mentioned how they're going to just go off of a voter list and maybe call people around dinner and during the day to kind of get their feedback. Being from a software background myself, I'm kind of in that category of maybe a survey monkey would be a little bit more beneficial to your actual 179,000 customers who might have email attached to their bills. A lot of times people don't honestly know what CWS is, but I tell you, the people that get the bills, we definitely know. And I think it might be nice if you could maybe send out surveys to us so we could give our feedback and then maybe have like a checkbox to where if we want to participate in a focus group, we have that option of being invited to that as well versus random phone calls and an outsourced company. I was also, my last thing, I was a little bit surprised to hear about the reserve funds. I thought I heard something around $340 million in reserve funds, which of course is for large, extraordinary projects if they come up. I know that this is a meeting around a 4% increase, but considering we're all pretty much drowning at this bill, I'm hoping that maybe you guys can take an extra year to continue evaluating how you're spending money and managing it, including that $2 million that you said that you're actually paying Tualatin Valley to do your bills, which is shocking. But maybe you can postpone this increase while we all just kind of come to terms of what everyone at CWS is doing, which the employees, phenomenal. My gosh, you guys are awesome. But just for the ratepayers' sake, just kind of give us an extra year to wrap our head around this and then maybe bring it back up to us next year. So I heed my time and sorry if I rambled and thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Right. I do not see any other hands. Chair Song.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Okay, at this time, we've concluded today's agenda. I'll look for a motion to continue the Budget Committee review to May 23rd from 1 to 4 p.m. in this room. Oh.
We mentioned that we're going to be moving to the 23rd, to stay on a regular schedule and to give an appropriate amount of time for some pretty meaty discussions there.
So moved. So moved. Or do you need me to repeat the
No, that's
motion?
fine. Okay, do we have a second? Do we vote on that or just? Yeah. No. Vote on the motion to adjourn or to continue? Aye. Aye. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank everyone for their time, and we'll see you on the 23rd.